Hello, chat. How are you guys all doing today? I hope you're all having a wonderful Saturday morning if you're on the West Coast, afternoon if you're over here on the East, noon if you're anywhere in between. That's how time zones work. And if you're not in the United States, whatever time of day, I just lose track because I'm so America-centric with everything. How are you guys all doing today? My name is CV. Today we are joined by Jag. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. That was one hell of an intro, I gotta say. I'm Central Time, so I guess I'm in the middle of all of that. But for everyone joining us, it's going to be a great day of action. I hope nothing massive happened in Overwatch that would completely shift the meta or how heroes work in general or passive abilities. I just hope there isn't anything like that to completely change how this tournament might look in terms of all that at the end of the day. So, yeah, I guess we'll see how it goes.
Well, unfortunately, there was kind of a big seismic shift
Oh
that happened
no.
over the past week. This is, by the way, the Ride of the Valkyries returns tournament, the Mercy tournament, as I'm sure a lot of you guys colloquially refer to it. And there was a big patch that dropped that some of you might have heard of, the Season 9 patch, where pretty much the entirety of Overwatch got turned on its head. We have new metas, we have hero reworks, we have just entire ways in which the game plays out that's different, a new DPS passive. And let's talk a little bit about some of the fallout from that, especially as it relates to Mercy and what we're going to be seeing a little bit of overarching throughout all of the games today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first of all, now every hero heals passively, so that's a big change. Before it was only supports. Now we have DPS. They now have what I call grievous wounds for those that know League of Legends. Now, when you do damage, that reduces their healing capability, where the healing can be done to them, which I think will have big implications on Mercy. It's interesting about Mercy because she actually got some buffs to her abilities, like everyone else. She got a health increase. The amount of damage that she can heal immediately after being damaged actually increased, as well as her jump cancel. The time got decreased. So I'd say for her, she got some buffs overall, but with the state of the game, it kind of feels like she's not in a great spot.
Yeah, that DPS passive is, it's hurting a lot of people right now. I know tank players are definitely feeling the brunt of that right now, especially tank players that can't position themselves adequately and expect me as their Ana player to be the one to try and bail them out. And it's like, homie, I can't. You gotta back up. Like, you can't just sit there soaking up all of that damage for days. I can only do so much. And with Mercy, who traditionally, like, you are just kind of attached to that single target healing, trying to keep that person topped up at all times, so that, they're not in critical health. You can use the damage boost to try and actually bolster their offense. It kind of feels like you're, up against the wall there. You don't really have the opportunity to get them to full HP. It just goes too slow and you're not able to. And by the time you manage to pull that off, someone else somewhere needs your attention. It's gotten really, really difficult. And we've also saw a rework to Pharah, one of the most prominent duos. Again, every lesbian fell to their knees in a Walmart when we realized that Skiesti's post came out saying that that wasn't really the most viable combination anymore. That's kind of fallen to the wayside. I think it's still playable, but Pharah did get a rework that makes her a little bit more independent, where she's less reliant on a Mercy in order to be successful.
Yeah, Pharmacy, forever in our hearts, but maybe not in the game. I think the big thing is she has now a new secondary ability, Jet Dash, which allows you to just immediately go horizontally, boost up in their direction. It's an 8-second cooldown. Jump Jet has been changed just a bit. I think Barrage is kind of cool now that it instantly refills hover jet fuel. So that means, immediately after you use that ult, you might be able to fly away, but you're still going to be a sitting duck while using that ultimate. I think Sojourn potentially is the best DPS you could pocket at this point with Mercy. Maybe something like an Ashe, especially with those hitbox changes. But there's just so much uncertainty overall. I think we know that there's definitely going to be some things that used to be good that won't work as well. But overall, there's so many question marks going into this. It's going to be completely different. At least I'm expecting it to be looking very different in terms of team compositions from what we saw in the tournament last week.
Absolutely. And hey, speaking of team compositions, let's start talking a little bit about some of these teams. We're going to kick things off today with our Valkyrie division round 1 matchup. We've got Rad Rockets going up against Babinki. Some interesting little trivia about these two teams, by the way. They played each other in round 4 of our Swiss matchup. Rad Rockets won that one 2-1, so we get a little bit of a rematch on stream here. Once we actually get to kind of look at the rosters, we can kind of parse together how we feel about, who's going to get the better of this, if Rad Rockets are going to go back-to-back against this team, or if Babinki might be able to swing it in their favor this time around. They played close in a best-of-3 format, and that is what we are going to be playing for this first-round matchup, so we'll kind of see what these two teams got as their logos switch in real time.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. But I think the biggest thing about Valkyrie division that we got to talk about is, these are going to be some of the best players that we see on stream. These are all players that are in Grandmasters. The difference is that, versus the Divine division that we'll see a little bit later, they're just not necessarily former Overwatch League or Contenders players. But there's some really great names in here, some really big names. Muma, former Overwatch League player, now a content creator. Ace of Spades, used to be Contenders, also a content creator. They're going to be on the other side of the bracket. There's quite a bit of cash on the line, a $1,500 prize pool here. But as we look at the bracket, we can see exactly all the teams that we'll be seeing in the Valkyrie division throughout the tournament. I think the big thing, though, is, this is going to be the first team that we see on stream. So there's going to be some high elo play, but, there's no one else to look at. You can't see what other teams are doing and say, hey, maybe we should play that ourselves. We will see players that have that competitive experience, like we said, but a lot of these players more just ladder players. So I'm really intrigued to see kind of how this works out, what they want to do, or if they are defining the meta themselves.
Yeah, the Valkyrie division specifically, it is kind of like this weird amalgamation of both like former pros that have kind of like been a little bit quieter or maybe taken more towards streaming or content creation after their pro career came to an end, or they just, haven't been grinding as competitively as much, but they're still very dominant, very capable players, especially on ladder, as well as some of these like younger up-and-comer players that have been grinding on ladder and just haven't really gotten to that tier 2, tier 1 level consistently as of late. So it's still gonna be very high level play, just in a kind of different flavor of the Divine division, which we'll be seeing a little bit of later. But for right now, let's focus right now on the here and now, the Valkyrie division. Again, Rad Rockets versus Babinky. That's gonna be our first taste of it. And, let's have a quick little, who you got on this one?
Oh, I gotta say Rad Rockets. I am taking the team that's already beaten Babinky. I think that's kind of like, we've seen it once, it's probably gonna happen again. Yeah. But if we look at their roster, also there are some names I'm very impressed by. I think the big one I'm looking at is Sheep. Has a lot of competitive experience, used to playing Calling All Heroes, previously NYXL Academy. We've seen how many players from that team went on to have success, not only in Calling All Heroes, but in tournaments like Dive Party and the Path to Pro circuit. Has been very impressive on Tracer and some other GPS picks, but also looking at Paulette, was on the Team Mexico for Overwatch World Cup. Looks very impressive there. Looks like they will be the one potentially taking on the Mercy role here today. So I think those are the bigger names that you might see, at least, on this side of the bracket. And I think those are the ones to look out for.
I 100% agree. Keep an eye on both of those players specifically. I want to keep an eye mostly on Paulette just because she's, the Mercy player for this squad. So I kind of want to see what she's going to be, what's going to be asked of her realistically. Like, what is actually going to be going through her mind? Is she going to be pocketing a hit scan? How is this team all going to be playing out? What kind of decisions is she going to have to make in order to be successful, in order to bolster this roster for success? Because, being a Mercy, like we said at the top of the show, it's gotten a lot more difficult. It already did kind of feel a lot of the times like you're being pulled in 4 different directions a lot of the time, unless you are firmly pocketing somebody, unless, something goes wrong. Now it's like, the barrier for something going wrong is a lot lower now, especially with that DPS passive. So I want to keep a close eye on her decision making, but also want to keep an eye on Sheep and what she brings to the table. But we should also be keeping a close eye on the team that did bring them the distance last time they met, Babinky.
Yeah, they did go to that map 3. In fact, a lot of Rad Rockets wins were on that third map, 3 out of their 5 wins overall. But Babinky, they only lost to 2 of the best teams in the tournament. So it was to Rad Rockets that we already talked about, as well as Gilbert's family, who is the #1 seed at the top of the bracket with Muma on that team. So if you're only losing to those teams, that's pretty good. That's showing, hey, like, we can compete with the top dogs. Like, we may be able to fight them. And although they ended up losing that one, the fact that they brought them all the way to that map 3 gives me a lot of hope that they're going to make this a very close quarter series again. I think with these favorite heroes, maybe some confusion about who's playing what, but this is organized by role. So well, I'm very curious to see who actually ends up playing what role at the end of the day. Maybe we'll see some fluctuation.
I'm not seeing anybody picking Mercy as their favorite hero, though, and that's a little... Ooh. I mean, sometimes these players, they like to, troll a little bit with their favorite hero. Like, we'll see, like, people put, like, 5 Lucios on there. Some people putting, like, heroes that they don't actually play. But in this case, someone is going to have to take the Mercy responsibilities. And I think, given the current landscape, it is going to have to be someone who has that kind of Mercy pedigree, who's capable of being that decision maker for the team, who can pick up the slack, either be the pocket or be the one who's, going in for these clutch reses, knowing the triage, who to heal, when, where, and how. How do I get to my teammates that very well might just be feeding if we're not as coordinated as we need to be? And it's a tough job, right? Like, it's not the easiest thing in the world. I know people like to clown on it. They're like, oh, Mercy's so easy. No, you really, like, you're pulled in 4 different directions. You got to make a lot of decisions here. It is not by any stretch of the imagination easy, especially in a competitive situation like the one we're about to see when we kick off on our first map. It's going to be Lijiang Tower to start it off.
Yeah, and I've been one of the biggest defenders of Mercy in almost every broadcast I've been on. You can quote me on this here. I've said it elsewhere that I've been. I think Mercy is one of the most underappreciated heroes in Overwatch. The mechanical skill, everyone always dogs in that, oh, you only have to, pocket someone, yada, yada, yada. But you have to have such good decision making. You have to be on the right person at the right time. You go for those resurrections, when no one's looking at you, or have someone on your team backing you up. Usually a lot of the time you're going to be fight planning, ult tracking, all that good stuff that an IGL does. So, there's going to be a lot of pressure on these Mercies, especially knowing that maybe she's not in the best spot overall after all these changes coming into Season 9. But as we get into Lijiang Tower, I'm very intrigued to see what actually comes out for both teams. I think one thing that a lot of these times on Control, you want a Lucio to speed you out at least a spot, but you can't do that here. You can't have the Lucio speed swap onto the Mercy. You literally have to have Mercy at every single moment once you spawn onto the map. So I'll have to see how these teams try to speed around. Maybe they go for the Symmetra as we load on to Night Market. Maybe they go for some other things. It's really anyone's guess on to who actually will be played here.
The interesting thing is, like, pre-patch in like a Mercy tournament, I would have 100% say Pharmacy is what's going to be coming out, but I don't actually know if that's the route that we're going to go this time around. Like, Rad Rockets, like, looking at what they're showing right now, they're busting out the Zenyatta right now, and that's kind of been a very strong hero to come out of this latest patch. The orb size increase coupled with the Discord, it kind of makes him a threat, especially coupled with that DPS passive. If you put Discord onto a target and a DPS tags them at all, it's gonna hurt.
Yeah, Zen not going to be just that sitting duck anymore. That glass cannon, 275 health overall, as well as the shields that recharge. So there's a lot of self-healing possibilities. The Discord orb, even though it got nerfed a few patches, now it goes away if you don't have that line of sight. Still can be pretty powerful overall.
Yeah, as we just kind of chill here, but Minky, like you said, we are seeing that Pharmacy composition, so we're gonna see a little bit of how well that does play out, but we do also have Zens on either side. SnowJ, though, gonna find an early pick off there, and it's gonna look like Babinky taking early control of this as they've managed to take out the Ashe Mercy combo. Mitosis just kind of going nasty with that Doomfist right now, and yeah, this should be Babinky's point to win here.
I mean, both teams have basically the same idea, just different ways of playing it. They want to run around the map. They want to have self-sustaining heroes. The Soldier has his health pack. I mean, you're kind of saying goodbye to the Zen and hoping they can survive and the Mercy can fly to them, but both tanks going to be flying around. It's really going to be that matchup of SnowJ versus XIV here, and for now, it looks like SnowJ, even when we talked about the Pharah not being nearly as strong as maybe she used to be, they're the ones that are winning out, at least for the beginning.
So the Pharah is going to be able to control space, though, because XIV, in order to try and get any value out of this Mercy Pocket Ashe pick, has to try and play wide, and that gives SnowJ a lot of room to work with. Even hit a couple concussive blasts there to go ahead and deny the res coming out from Paulette. So no res coming out. Babinky's still just holding strong. Not really a whole lot of ground being gained by Rad Rockets, but SnowJ is not content to just let them sit in the ground they currently have. No, they want it all for themselves.
They are taking it all right now. There's just a lone Wrecking Ball and Tracer trying to find anything. They do find, I think, one pick throughout the entire fight, but they are struggling to find a way, and I'm seeing the spam that's coming out from SnowJ just being such a deterrent, as well as Freyna just raining out all those orbs from the backline. Rad Rockets are trying to find something around the map. You see Sheeps trying to pressure out anyone that they can, but just nothing to be found. I mean, I see the CC from Babinky has just been too much. You got the punch, you have all that potential from the Pharah, and that pulse bomb not going to find anything.
That would have been a great pulse bomb if it had hit Sheep, but nope. Goes a little bit wide there. That said, though, XIV going to take out Kairos, but Sheep going to go ahead and pay for it in kind. Mitosis is not going to let that res go off all that easily, but has to back out. Takes a lot of damage. That's the power of the Discord Orb and the DPS passive, showing the tanks just can't sit there for too long. But speaking of Rad Rockets, they can't sit around for too much longer either. But Babinky have 5 ults, so we're at 90%. Rad Rockets have to try and make a play right now. Valkyrie gonna come out from Paulette. Freyna has fallen, so no longer have to worry about that Discord, but you are gonna have to worry about the tac visor coming out from Kairos. It's not finding all that much, save for the Bob from XIV, and Rad Rockets might have done just enough to flip this.
They do, but it's going to be very dire on this first submap of Lijiang Tower. They do get 2 ultimates out from Bobinky. They get both the Tactical Visor,
with
the
cleanup
Valkyrie.
there.
But that's about it. Yeah, and the cleanup's nice, so that's going to stagger out for just a little bit. But Red Rockets now, they are down to 2 ultimates. That Pulse Bomb might get online, you know, somehow, because, you know, it's not a very expensive ultimate. You can charge it up pretty quickly. But the big thing is that Bobinky, they have that barrage ready to go, but they don't notice that there's a wrecking ball behind them. That's going to be the minefields.
Yeah, you gotta check your corners. That's gonna force out the Transcendence. Freyna knows that you gotta pop that Transcendence so you're just not getting out of there alive. Mitosis, though, finds a pickoff onto Paulette. Rad Rockets have to trade that out, but while they're looking for the picks there, they weren't looking at the barrage. The Rad Rockets come in their own way from Snowjay, and Bobinky are gonna flip this one. 99%, Oxy goes back over to try and stop the flip from coming, but a nice little concussive blast forces Oxy back just a little bit further. This Wrecking Ball is all we really got to keep Rad Rockets in the fight here. Sheep coming back with the Pulse Bomb, but dies before she can find anybody to place it on, and Bobinky holds strong on Night Market.
Looking for revenge, as we talked about earlier, they did end up falling to Rad Rockets in the Swiss stage 1-2, so they are the underdog, but they are playing this so cleanly so far. That Pharah that we talked about being potentially weaker after those changes, still looking pretty dang good overall, I gotta say, but I gotta give a big shout out to Singularity specifically. We saw that a lot of the time they were the one keeping their team afloat. Their resurrections were on point. Hala unfortunately got a few of theirs canceled by either the spam or the CC abilities on the side of Bobinky. Singularity, though, was there at the right place, the right time, and their ult bank was really nice going into that last fight. That was the big thing. They didn't panic ult in that fight that they lost when the point turned over. They just kept everything going for the next fight. They had an ult advantage, and that's how they were able to take it with force.
Yeah, and if it works, stick with it. Bobinky coming out with that same exact composition. Rad Rocket's actually going to make a swap over to mirror the Soldier 76, but that's still going to put a lot of pressure, though, onto Sheep to try and make something happen. And a lot of pressure onto Triplet from Mitosis, who has continued to be just a force in the front line here. This Doomfist is something that Rad Rockets haven't really adequately dealt with, and the composition from Bobinky means there's a lot of different things that you gotta deal with right now. XIV just trying to stay in their lane flourishing, but Mitosis claims another life, and Bobinky gonna get first cap.
And really, you want to get on top of the Zenyatta. They are the least mobile. They are, I mean, again, like, they aren't as, like, squishy as they used to be. They have a lot more health, but still, like, that's the target you want to find. But Rad Rockets have had no success in doing that. I think an Echo or a Mirror Pharah could be huge here to have someone in the sky to not only duel Snowjay, but also just have someone flying around. But they're playing an all-ground comp. It's really up to Oxy and Sheep to try to find out the Zenyatta, and so far, no dice.
I mean, there's a little bit of dice right there. Yeah, XIV gonna come up Snake Eyes there with the Helix Rocket, but meanwhile, Sheep and Triplet are falling on the backside, so everything that Rad Rockets is getting is being traded out fourfold, as Mitosis with a big slam there and Snowjay with a little bit of follow-up damage, and it's just Oxy getting punched right off the map there by Mitosis, and that's another team kill. But Binky still looking stalwart.
Yeah, not only looking stalwart, but that ult bank looking mighty fine. Already at Valkyrie, very close to Meteor Strike, so if Mitosis gets into any sticky situations, they can just ultimate out of it. It's looking rough for Rad Rockets. I like that they originally had a stim to try to teleport out of spawn. I thought maybe they would try to keep it and take over the point, but you've seen that they've really struggled just getting out of their own spawn since then. They've really not been having any great neutral fights because Mitosis just has been kind of running around the map, not being able to punish, and now with this barrage, oh, that might just be a poop. Now it's just gonna be a follow-up kill. Snowjay's on a rampage.
That was absolutely beautiful. The self layup and slam dunk there from Snowjay. You love to see that. You definitely don't love to see what's going on if you're a Rad Rockets fan. The res does come out for XIV, so we're getting at least a little bit bought back into this. But again, everything that Rad Rockets is getting is constantly being traded out. There's a slam coming down from Mitosis and Snowjay. These two just keep showing up in the kill feed over and over again. Minefield coming out from Oxy, but it's a token gesture at best. Mirage, just a taunt Rad Rockets from Snowjay, 99%. I'm not sure if anyone from Rad Rockets is gonna get the touch there. Triplet actually does just barely get their toenails on for the touch, but there's not gonna be anyone to follow up after that. But Binky with this Farm Mercy comp looking pretty dominant on Lijiang Tower.
Expect the unexpected. Take everything you know about this tournament and throw it out the window. Bobinky has come to play, and that 100-0 win on the second map, a pretty dominant win on the first one as well, even if there was a capture from Rad Rockets. I think it was 100-45 when all was said and done. Just a great performance with them on this composition, understanding how to play this meta to perfection. Despite losing the previous series against Red Rockets, they are looking not like the underdog whatsoever coming into this one. There's still at least one more map. This is a first to 2, so this isn't. There's not a lot of room for breathing for Red Rockets. They lose this one, they're going down to lower bracket. But for Red Rockets, at least they get a map pick. As the losers, that's going to be their advantage for this one. So there's going to be a little bit of hope for them to potentially get a reverse sweep here.
I think, I don't want to be too much of a Babinky doubter here, but that is Lijiang Tower. Like, when you think of maps that Pharah is the most viable on, that's right at the top of the list. And, like, yeah, sure, we talked about how the rework, that composition isn't, like, still the most viable, but Pharah just on her own can control so much space on Lijiang Tower, especially seeing as how we didn't actually see Control Center, the only part where Red Rocket's composition might have been favored. You're constantly forcing your hit scan with the Mercy Pocket to be playing on wide angles where they can try and find any sort of line of sight on the enemy Pharah to try and keep track of that. And whenever that's happening, they're going to be vulnerable to a Doomfist dive or, just random spam from the Helix Rockets or your own Soldier 76 coming out to pick them off. And it just feels like Babinky they played the map to their advantage there, I think. It's a great luck for them to come up with Lijiang Tower being the map of choice for Control for the first round here. But as we go into Rad Rocket's map pick, I think they are going to be able to give themselves a little bit more room to breathe, because they definitely felt completely suffocated on Lijiang.
They did, absolutely. We didn't see any flyers on their side, no Echo, no Pharah. They did try to swap XIV from the Ashe on to the Soldier 76 to get a little bit more ability, but as you can see with that dunk right there from SnowJ, it was a beautiful play. And unfortunately for XIV, they're on the receiving end of that. We're not able to find any success really on that change. I think I actually found more success with the Ashe because they did find that nice bob in one of those fights that helped them get the point previously on Night Market. But as you can see, SnowJ's stats, 10 final blows. That is very, very nice, but overall just 0 deaths. That's pretty crazy. I don't think there were a lot of deaths overall for the side of Babinky because, they did win one sub-map 100-0, only lost one fight on the other one. But still, the fact that they didn't fall at all, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, 0 deaths. SnowJ's got some damn good health insurance going for them there. I mean, yeah, again, shout out to Singularity, the Mercy player for this team, able to keep SnowJ alive the entire time. And SnowJ was just raining hellfire from above in potentially the most literal of terms. It also kind of goes to show that even in Season 9, even with the DPS passive being buffed, the answer to dealing with a pharmacy comp is never as simple as go hit scan. Like, I know that's like the gold brain mentality and has been for a very, very long time, but it's not that easy, especially when you've got someone like SnowJ who is constantly able to stay alive, rain down that much punishment from above, and you just can't quite find the angles to deal with that Pharah. But being able to create your own angles might be something that Rad Rockets want to look into, which is why they're going to take us to Blizzard World, where I feel like they might be able to get a little bit more advantageous angles with their hit scan play, especially on that Streets phase and on that first cap point.
Yeah, I gotta say, out of the 3 choices, the other ones being Paraiso and Nambani, I think this was the best pick. I feel like Nambani would have been especially a struggle because there's so much high ground potentially to take over, but also just because you have the high ground doesn't mean you win against the Pharah necessarily. I would say the same thing with Paraiso, like there's so many buildings that you can jump on top of. So I think Blizzard World makes the most sense, especially for that third point. There's a ceiling to it. You can't fly as high as a Pharah or as an Echo, so I think they're trying to take that high ground themselves, and then hopefully they're saying, maybe we can win the duel this time around. Maybe we can get our hit scan in the right position to win that one. Maybe we're able to get the Discord on them. I think another thing we have to talk about is that they actually ran triplet on the Lucio on Gardens, which I thought was intriguing, but did not really pan out very well for them. I feel like Lucio is also kind of in a weird spot. Not necessarily in general, but for this tournament, I feel like if you don't have a Mercy on the field, Lucio makes a lot of sense. But when you have to have a Mercy, you should run something else. And Ana, a Zen, something like that can really help out long range healing sort of thing. Lucio's AoE, short range. So they made that decision that time around. It looks like they are trying something different, going back to that Zenyatta. And we're going to see Sheep on the Echo. So this is something I was asking for before. I want to see them run a high flyer of their own. This time, they're bringing it to the table.
So going back real quick to your point about, running the Lucio, some people are going to think I sound crazy for this, right? But like at the top levels, at this level of play and, for the Divine Vision as well, you know, what players were doing in the past meta for a lot of it was actually kind of using the Lucio to pocket their hit scan player, going off on a flank with their Sojourn or with their Genji or whoever their DPS that they decided they wanted to pocket as Lucio was, and then falling back to the team and collapsing back to either pinch on the enemy team or whatever their strategy was. But Mercy kind of fills that same sort of role. So, you know, running a Lucio and a Mercy together is kind of redundant, and there's just not going to be enough healing, not going to be enough sustain to go through, versus running the Zenyatta, which both of these teams are currently doing, where you don't have to play for the heals, you don't have to play for pockets, you just put an orb on somebody and forget it, and you can go ahead and put one on Sheep right there. Freyna with a nice shot there. I think that might have been a 5 orb, I'm not quite sure. The res is going to come through, but so far, Rad Rockets, I mean, it's a little bit slow to get in the door.
And but Vicky actually swapped things up. Snowjay's gonna beat on the Sojourn, which I think that actually a railgun shot came out and helped get the initial kill, but they're the ones that are gonna fall. And this time I think it might be permanent. Singularity not able to get that res yet.
That was a Discord orb slam, but Oxy gonna pay for it with their life. Sheep gonna go ahead and trade that one back. We got about a tick and a half coming through. Sheep still trying to do what she can. Triplet though with a kill there onto Mitosis. Singularity not able to get the res, and Rad Rockets, it may have cost them their hamster, sure, but they're still able to buy, you know, trade Oxy's life in for the cap.
Just a really nice take. I think they did a really good job at starting the point. You're seeing the Wrecking Ball finding a lot more success, kind of just rolling in, getting all the fire going their direction, and the rest of the team, like Sheep, like XIV on this Tracer, being able to just kind of follow up from the sides or from up above. The High Flyer's coming out on the other side, and it's working. But Biggie's also going to make some swaps now. No more Sojourn. They're going to go for a Tracer to try to match up, and as the second point, it gets on rolling. I really like that Bobicki's taking this high ground. The question is, can they hold it for very long with a more mobile tank like the Doomfist who's going to be running around?
It's, I mean, they should still be able to hold it. Having Kairos up here with the Mercy Pocket, it's going to be very difficult to dislodge. But, I mean, you know, Sheep's going to have the duplicate. That could be something that could be leveraged. Oxy going to go ahead and roll right on through, but has the Discord Orb attached to him. There's a Pulse Bomb from XIV. Singularity is there with the res, but that was a very, very risky one. And it looks like they gave up a lot of ground just to try and make it happen, but Rad Rockets are tripping over their shoelaces a little bit. They definitely weren't able to stop that res completely. Kairos comes back. Mitosis again just showing up huge in the kill feed, and Rad Rockets, they're gonna make some swaps.
Oh, they're gonna make some swaps indeed. Very interesting going for the Sombra. I've seen a lot of players try to play this as a counter directly to the Doomfist. They dive in, you hack them. My fiance, who is a top 500 player, actually really likes Mei as opposed to Sombra, because, like, you know, you can just wall them off, you can freeze yourself, or you can try to freeze them. You know, worst comes to worst, so a little bit more self-sustainability. But the Sombra, if you're able to get that hack off, could be a great counterplay. Let's see what they go for. They could actually just go for also the Zenyatta, you know, hack them, use that fire risk, melt them down pretty quickly. But that time, looks like they're gonna have to actually force out Transcendence. Yeah, that's huge. That's a really great play.
Oh, but it gets traded out though. Triplet also forced to pop the Transcendence, so we're kind of at a stalemate here. I'm not sure how much space Rad Rockets are going to be able to gain off of this. They do take down Snowjay, but Kairos with the tack visor from on high is going to clear the entirety of the point, put a lot of hurt down onto Oxy again with that Discord Orb. And I mean, Rad Rockets, again, yeah, they force out the Transcendence, but they're not getting a whole lot for it. It's very scrappy, and they haven't even been able to claim the high ground yet.
No, but that cart is still moving. They've gotten more than halfway to that checkpoint, so that at least it's getting moving. They do lose their backline, though. This is probably not going to go their way now.
Yeah, not at all. Losing Paulette there and Triplet back-to-back. I mean, they get a kill onto Mitosis, but that's token. Like, it's not going to mean a whole lot. There's a nice Pulse Bomb there from XIV, but this is, like, not the battle you want to be taking. Like, it's not going to amount to anything. The spawn advantages are just too great. By the time you get your team back, but Binky is going to be back at full strength.
Did you see that punch? That was not meant to happen. They were in invis, and they were just trying to punch out. Mitosis was just trying to get the heck out of dodge, and that is so unlucky for Sheep. That cancels their invis. That means they can't translocate because they're stunned out of it, and that's actually terrible for Rad Rockets. That's going to be another reset after their Tracer just got staggered. So we talked about them getting some push on the carpet. They can't take this high ground. Now they're losing more and more time. They had 5 minutes to start with, and now they're down to 2. They've already lost more than half that time bank, and they are just not finding anything. Yeah,
and Sheep is going to fall. Snowjay with a great play to try and go in and pressure that one out. And again, you're losing so much backline pressure. Everyone's playing so scattered right now. Look at where Paulette and Triplet are forced to play right now. They're collectively just kind of in this little hellscape hole over here where they're subject to so much torment coming out from Babinky. Another dead fight from Rad Rockets, and I'm not even sure what the win condition was. Like, what was the game plan for that one?
I don't know. I felt like for the Sombra, you want to play more defensively, but they're trying to play more aggro. They're sending all their more divey characters, the Tracer, the Sombra, the Wrecking Ball up onto the high ground, trying to find that quick pick, and they're not really finding much success. I'd love to see Sheep play a little bit farther back, wait for the engage from Mitosis, and then try to play it like around the counter, like get the hack out, and then just melt Mitosis down when they don't have any abilities online. But instead, again, the high ground takes trying to be there, but the Minefield's not going to find anything. They're just going to force them to back up.
Yeah, the minefield was a great tool that could have potentially won them the high ground, but I mean, they just turned around and take down the entire cavalry. Everyone that tried to come through, both frontliners, the backliners, everyone's done. Despite the res that comes out from Powlett, it doesn't amount to anything. Rad Rockets still having a failure to launch so far. This has been quite sloppy from them, and Babinky are just kind of playing their game.
Yeah, Houston, we definitely have a problem with how this one is going. And I was thinking for Rad Rockets, at least like they have some ultimates, but using the Valkyrie there is pretty costly. They do have an EMP, and I think the biggest thing is you have to hit a nice EMP, and it looks like they're going for it.
Yeah, is the follow-up gonna be there, though? The slam comes through, but there's the Transcendence, and Sheep is going to pay for it with her own life. Kairos, with the benefit of that Mercy Pocket, takes down Triplet as well. And this should be another dead fight from Rad Rockets, but there's not enough time to try and take another one. Oxy's going to fall, and it's looking more and more dire. I'm thinking that cart's not making a whole lot more progress. 15 seconds to go, and not a prayer in the world for Rad Rockets. It's got to be XIV with this Pulse Bomb, trying to find something, but also have to keep the cart in contention, so it might not even be able to realistically go for any sort of big plays. Someone has to stay on this cart. The overtime tick. So the overtime wick's gonna go ahead and start burning. Babinky's still holding the high ground. There's a shot onto Powlett. Transcendence forced out early, but Binky can just wait this out. Going with the big slam, going with the pulse bomb, going with anything their little heart desires. There's the pulse bomb, goes a little bit wide. Meteor Strike gonna come down. Triplet gonna get pounded straight down into the pavement. Sheep and XIV, though, coming up with a little bit of something. I'm not sure how much that's going to be, especially when Oxy's life is on the clock, and that's where the cart is going to stop. Unfortunately, Mines cannot contest the payload. It's gotta be players, and Rad Rockets ran out of them.
Okay, but hear me out. What if Mines could contest the payload? Make it happen, Blizzard. It'd be a game changer.
It would change the game for the worse. Don't do that. What are you doing?
Why not? Why not make it even more fun? But it's a good last fight from Rad Rockets, I gotta say, despite the fact that they're down their Mercy right away. That Transcendence does keep them in the mix for a little bit. You could see them fighting back, but it's just too much to overcome. But Binky still has a better ult bank overall. They have more members to start out with, and they just look way more coordinated. Rad Rock, you can see the desperation, because again, they lose this, they're going down to lower bracket. It's not the end of their tournament run, but it's definitely not where they want to be, especially being one of the higher seeds, having a 5-1 run in the Swiss stage, only losing one match overall. They don't want to be there after this first round, but it's looking more and more likely for them that they will be. I think you can see a little bit of them being disorganized in the way that they're playing, and I think a big example of this was that EMP from Sheep. They go in, they're able to get both supports, but where's the follow-up? There's no one really else there. There's no follow-up damage to really actually help them capitalize on that ultimate, and because of that, it just ends up going by the wayside. Again, I wasn't a huge fan of how their play style was, playing more dive instead of playing more defensive and reactionary, but with this poke comp, Sigma coming out for the first time, maybe this will be their advantage.
I'm liking this poke comp, and hopefully it's going to put a lot of stock into XIV to be hitting a lot of those shots. But the question is, where is Sheep going to be lurking? How much value is she going to be able to find as this lone assassin on the Tracer? Especially going to have to be dueling off with SnowJ, and we actually see that duel happening in real time. Sheep actually going to go ahead and have to back off because SnowJ has the orb. You know, dishonorable in a Tracer 1v1, as history has shown us, but not enough to deter the 1v1 from going on. Mitosis gonna go ahead and make it a handicap match. Sheep not gonna stick around much longer.
With this Baptiste, there should be a lot more healing overall for Rad Rockets, but the thing is, can they stick together? Because, you can see already, they are getting just absolutely run over.
Yeah, it's Mitosis going in with a punch there, Freyna with a little bit of follow-up damage, and Mitosis still just kind of going crazy on this Doomfist. And it's a hero that Rad Rockets' composition is just not at all equipped to deal with. SnowJ doesn't even have to win the Tracer duel. All they have to do is keep Sheep at bay long enough to not be a threat onto Freyna. Freyna can put the Discord Orb onto anyone, and Mitosis will go kill.
right now for Red Rockets, you have to keep rotating, but there's no speed boost. There's no way to get out of this. The Immortality Field comes in a bit late, so all that extra healing from the Baptiste isn't going to do you a damn thing, unfortunately, when you are just getting dived on, you're getting pounced upon, and there's going to be so much space now for Bobinky to keep this cart moving. The ultimates again, they are charging up really, really quickly. Now Red Rockets again making some swaps. They still have that Baptiste, but they've now moved Oxy to a doofus of their own.
I mean, and that might be what they need to do right now to try and just keep Mitosis off of this high ground. They almost gave it up for free, which was their own sticking point, the failure to be able to take that. If they can at least deny Bobinky from taking it for free, they have something at least a little defensible. Was that punch on purpose? I don't think it was, but regardless, it catches Sheep off guard. Now Oxy is forced to try and go in and take the boxing match, but it is not at all a fair fight. There's an Immortality Field to try and keep Oxy alive, and it does. They take down Mitosis, and Rad Rockets have done enough to hold on.
And all the while, the cart is not moving that much. They did not get nearly as much progress as I thought they would. They committed to this fight further out than the cart actually was. They tried to go for a little bit of a spawn camp, and they lose the high ground fight. So Red Rockets actually having a nice little regroup on their defense after losing that point initially very quickly. Now they're going to be going for the pulse bomb. It actually doesn't. It forces the trance out.
That's pretty huge, though. They're also going to force out the attack visor, coming out with the Mercy Pocket, so Rad Rockets just have to try and play for cover a little bit. No casualties thus far, but a little bit of cart space being taken, and there's not a whole lot of cart space left before this is a Bobinky dub. Ant Matrix going to come out, Singularity going to respond with the Valkyrie, and Triplet not going to live long enough to get any value out of that Ant Matrix. Mitosis takes down Oxy, Paulette with the res, but she's going to pay for it. Mitosis again coming up absolutely massive, and Bobinky just roll away with this one. It never felt like Rad Rockets got off the launch pad, but Binky just go up 2-0, making it look absolutely easy.
Mission failed. We'll get him next time, perhaps, for Rad Rockets, as they did not get the same story as last time. But Binky giving us a new chapter in what could be a rivalry in this tournament if they end up facing off for a third time later down the line. I was rooting against them, or not rooting, but I was expecting them not to win.
I was rooting against them.
I was actually rooting against this team. I was all Rad Rockets all the time, but yeah, I just didn't expect it. I mean, we saw before, 1-2 lost for them, and here they are 2-0. Didn't even go to that map 3, and it didn't really look that close at the end of the day. I gotta say, I think there were definitely moments of brightness for Rad Rockets. There were definitely times where they were able to fight back. They had some good holds. They had some good punishments of overextensions for Bobinky, especially on that second point. A Blizzard World like we just saw. But other than that, like, it just never seems like they were setting the tempo. It never really seemed like they were in the driver's seat whatsoever. Bobinky, they were just consistently pushing pedal to the metal. They were constantly using the acceleration. They were running at Rad Rockets, and Rad Rockets did not have an answer.
You want to know, like, in my opinion, when Rad Rockets lost that map? Because I have a little theory here. Because, like, obviously, yeah, they lost it when, Bobinky capped the golden box of victory on the second point there. But I think it was lost long before that. I think when they actually lost it was when Sheep swapped off of the Echo onto the Sombra. Because at that point, Rad Rockets' composition was fully committed to a dive. They had Zen, Mercy, Wrecking Ball, Sombra, Tracer. Who does the Mercy attach herself to in that composition, if not the Zenyatta? And, like, you just have a vulnerable backline at that point in time, because she doesn't have enough healing to keep a Zenyatta alive, and she's not going to help contribute to the damage in any sort of meaningful way. You kind of just have to have your Zenyatta completely frag out. Meanwhile, Sheep and XIV are kind of solo agents. Oxy's just kind of doing his own thing on the Wrecking Ball. And, like, if any of them die, Mercy can't do a damn thing. Like, she's not gonna be able to go in and get a res. Like, that's just a lost cause. So it's a lot more pressure on Paulette to try and play that full dive composition in that style on the Mercy. Gone are the days where you could play the Moth meta dive. It just doesn't work out the same as it did in the inaugural season of the Overwatch League. We are now much farther removed from that, especially after the new patch. So I think that's a little bit of a mistake. Probably spells a little bit of desperation that came out from Rad Rockets. But, on the side of Bobinky, they played their game to perfection. There's, like, realistically no notes, except for the fact that, like, it's a composition that they shouldn't even really be able to get away with. Like, we've seen the tier list, right? Like, Doomfist is not an S tier for anybody. He's in, like, C, D for a lot of people. Wrecking Ball has been, like, S tier for some people. But, I mean, Bobinky doesn't care about your tier lists.
No, absolutely not. And I think one thing we got to talk about is the Echo pip. Because I think Echo, it seems a bit stronger than Pharah, but I think also got some indirect nerfs with these patch notes. Because usually you think of Echo and it's like, all right, I'm just gonna Sig Grenade someone. I'm gonna use my focusing beam because they're gonna be at half health and they're gonna get melted. But everyone got a health buff, so everyone is a bit more chunky, a little bit harder to chunk out. But it was still working. I think the big thing is they had some elevation to their attack, which they didn't have previously. They had the Echo over the top with the Wrecking Ball, and you could just like kind of run into them. But like you said, when they swapped to that Sombra, I think they lost a lot of the steam in their set. They lost a lot of that momentum that they had finally going for themselves. So, tier lists, throw them out the window. It doesn't matter what you got. If you can execute your comp to perfection, that is all that matters. And we're going to be taking a quick break. We'll have an interview on the other side of that. So, go there, folks. We got that interview coming up in just a few moments.
Welcome back, chat. How are you guys all doing? I know we're doing pretty great here because we just got to watch well, I was gonna say banger, but it was kind of a quick 2-0 that I felt like needed a little bit more oomph to it from the enemy team. But we got Freyna coming out here from Babinki, a very dominant team and a dominant player in the backline. Freyna, welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. How are y'all?
I mean, we're doing really good. All right, so a lot of our questions I think are probably going to have to do a little bit with the Season 9 patch. I'm going to go ahead and kick it off, though, from the point of view as a backliner. How do you really feel about Mercy's place in the current sandbox after the patch?
Really, it's really difficult to play with Mercy if you're. I mean, in the current, since we're in a tournament where everybody's playing Mercy, it's fine. But with Zen being so strong, Mercy really is difficult to have any sustain if you get discorded or anything like that. And then also the 20% DPS passive really hurts Mercy.
Yeah, it's hell. It's hell for Mercy players to try and keep everybody topped up.
Well, luckily for you, you did not have to play Mercy in this matchup. So I'm curious, how do you feel about Zen specifically? You played Zenyatta throughout the entirety of it. How did it feel in this series? How does it feel overall in the meta that you're playing?
So Zen is the best, is legitimately just way too strong. That 275 tank doesn't, 275 HP, but it's the Discord really is just, you have such strong sustaining power in the backline, the kick, etc. And since I have a soldier playing with me in the tournament, I have some sort of pill, so the Mercy doesn't have as much. But it's really strong. Just having the Discord and then just permanently being able to help with the front line, because also the orb will stay on the tank through walls. I don't know if that was a recent change, but I did notice it. But it's very beneficial.
Interesting. I did not actually realize that. I gotta look through the patch notes again to see if they reverted then the time that they had on it or changed it a bit. But looking at this series specifically, you guys had played against Red Rockets in the Swiss stage. That was a 1-2 loss. How were you guys able to not only get the upset victory, but a sweep that was pretty dominant?
Well, we knew our game plan for playing Soldier Doom, maybe Pharah / whatever, Snowjay, usually Tracer or Sojourn. So we knew what we were gonna play. We stuck to it, and we were calming. We were playing well, and we just played really well together.
All right. Well, I mean, now that you've got, like, again, we talk about how that was a bit of a revenge match. You just kind of came in playing what you knew you guys wanted to play, like the Doomfist, the Pharah, all that. Now that you've gotten that particular monkey off of your back, is there anybody else in this bracket that you're looking at and being like, you're next?
I'm not in the bad way, but I do really enjoy playing against Muma's team. It's a really good difficult challenge, so I'm looking forward to hopefully playing them. If we make it that far, we'll see. But that's who I'm looking forward to.
You got off on the right foot. If that's your goal, is to get a match against them. I mean, getting a win here, definitely a great way to do it. That should pretty much wrap up this interview, but real quick, I want to give you the opportunity. The floor is yours. Any shout outs you want to give, anything else you want to say to the chat, to your team, anyone else, go for it.
Don't sleep on Babinki, that's all.
What more needs to be said? All right, thank you so much for joining us, Freyna, and yeah, don't sleep on Babinki.
All right, you have a nice night.
Yeah. You as well. Mercy is definitely in a place, it sounds like, is what I'm gathering. She's definitely in a rough spot right now, but Zen, the complete opposite. Zen is like king of the mountain right now and just snap kicking anybody that dares challenge his throne, especially, enemy tracers that would be kings.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a Zenyatta main myself, I'm absolutely loving it. I'm enjoying every moment of it until he gets nerfed back into the ground. Like he will be, I'm sure, eventually, because yeah, it's kind of crazy how strong he is with that health pool of his, as well as just how much damage and healing he can output. He is just such a strong weapon right now, and teams, not surprisingly, are taking advantage of that. I'm expecting to see him quite a bit. You and I, we talked about this before the tournament. Who did we think we'd see alongside Mercy? And I think we both agreed Zenyatta was probably the most likely.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't think people would be too crazy to try and go for like the Mercy Lucio, but apparently Rad Rockets tried that and showed us in real time why that's not a great strategy. And like for a lot of these hyper mobile comps and with a lot of these heroes, I think Zenyatta just kind of suits things the best. The least, compared to like an Ana or a Baptiste, he's a lot less vulnerable, especially with the Discord Orb and especially with the projectile size increases, making some of those headies a little bit easier to hit. And that's a nightmare if you're a flyer, if you're a Widowmaker that's peeking, if you're a Tracer that's trying to take a duel, any of the above. Zen is going to be very strong going forward. I think that's the one thing we can all take away from this game, and as well as like a lot of the scrims we've been seeing. I think that's just kind of where the meta is headed. Zen is king right now. I love to see it. I know you love to see it, but we're gonna have to get to a quick break. I know you made a promise to a friend to give a phenomenal throw though for this break here though. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to you and let you have it.
Yeah, before we get to the Divine Division, unfortunately, we're going to be saying goodbye to Valkyrie for the rest of the day. We do have some amazing content from a great, really smart, just incredible content creator, also the most beautiful. I definitely wasn't forced to say this by her at all, but it's going to be Crystal Rain, ex-Rite of the Valkyries, Overthink.
Well done.
Welcome back to Overthink, the game show where I ask contestants a series of Overwatch hot takes to see where they stand. Feel free to play along in the comments to let me know what your opinions are on these hot takes. And if you'd like to actually be on an episode, go ahead and sign up in my Discord. I host these live on my Twitch channel most Sundays, so please go follow me on there to catch a show live. And lastly, please don't forget to drop a like and subscribe for more content like this. On the floor, as you can see, we have a lot of pucks. That's ugly. Like, we don't want to deal with that stuff, right? So I always have the contestants clean it up, you know, but put them to work a little bit before the game show starts. But this group of people is a little different because they're all people who play an organized play. They are, you know, pro players of sorts. So I want just the best puck cleaning of all time.
Go, right, I'm amping. See that? They're resing.
We get back here.
I can't even. I got four over here. Four. Alright, I'm amping speed. Get this.
Get him, put me off. I hit a clip.
We're starting off spicy here. Supports are overpowered. Go. Interesting. Okay.
I generally think that support is a bit overpowered simply because like we have the craziest abilities. We can bring people back. We can cleanse like the strongest abilities in the game. We can just TP away. We can fly away. We can make people immortal, and our damage output on some heroes that just make support really strong.
I definitely agree with the damage output when it comes to the supports. There's definitely a handful of supports that I think should not be putting out as much damage as they do. But as far as like their abilities and cleansing and stuff like that, could be debuffed a little bit. But I mean, that's what we do, man. We got to watch out for our team.
So I can agree with them definitely being overpowered in the right hands. And I feel like for me, I would use overtuned more so than I would overpowered. So I feel like other roles need to be like fine-tuned as much as like support is, just because it is kind of ridiculous just how capable supports are.
On the very end over there, we have Ashen. So you're on the disagree side of the spectrum. You're sitting in the somewhat disagree with the hot take of supports are overpowered. So let's hear your stance on it.
I'm actually totally surprised that I'm the only person on this side. So I think supports have a lot of utility in their kit. You know, we talked about invulnerability, lamp, things like that. There's also a lot of DPS output. But I disagree that they're OP because you know, I think we oftentimes hear from DPS and tank players saying, oh, support's so easy. I can just play support and I'll, you know, climb to GM or whatever. It's higher rank than my main role. But I would say support is the easiest to get value out of in terms of like low skill floor. But I think it's the hardest role to carry on because if you have some bots on your team, like maybe you can carry one bot on your team. But if you have a couple bad players, I think we can all agree it's really, really hard to carry. And so because of that, I don't think support is OP.
All right, nobody's getting canceled yet. You guys are off to a good start. Res should be a line of sight ability. Go. All right, we almost have at least one person per stance. I wonder what Twitter and even Twitch chat would think about that.
I somewhat agree with it, just because it is such like a powerful ability, and I understand like I've seen the frustration of just seeing a Mercy res through the floor on something. But I don't necessarily know that should be changed to entirely like line of sight based. I don't know if there's a way to tweak it to where it works more like Zenyatta's like Discord and like Harmony Orb, where you had to have line of sight to start it, but like it fades out. Maybe it if you break it for longer, like quick enough, you can just cancel it, but it shouldn't be like entirely line of sight based.
I think that whilst I can understand like some of the frustration with it being like, oh man, that Mercy's behind the corner now. I can't get her. I can't deny this thing. It's kind of still relatively easy. That get quaked on clip was the first thing I always think of whenever this comes up. And it's important to remember Doomfist has an ability that lets him just go over barriers, right? And then another ability that stuns you. It's entirely possible to just deal with this most of the time. And the only time when it's like a major problem in my mind is when someone got headshot at the very start of a fight just as like a random Hanzo arrow, in which case it kind of just makes the fight interesting anyway because it wasn't just cheaped out, oh you rolled the RNG lucky. I've never felt that like res being a line of sight check was necessary for it to feel like a fair ability because I don't feel like it's cheap in the first place. Most of the time it's an automatic fight loss.
I feel like it's important for Mercy to be able to not be an LOS when rezzing because she's already very vulnerable when she's rezzing just by herself. So I feel like it gives her some sort of like security in some areas, if that makes sense.
I completely agree with what Crybaby's saying because Res is basically Mercy's only ability. Like, I know GA is an ability, but it's like more of like a way to move around the map. It's not like something that impacts the game. And so it's already difficult to use, especially in lobbies that are like really high rank because like, for example, I'll sometimes only get like 4 or 5 reses off a game in a lobby and then my Kiriko, she'll get like 20 or 30 Suzus. And so I think people like are taking issue with the wrong abilities. Like requiring constant line of sight, like Crybaby said, would make Mercy even more vulnerable, and she's already like super vulnerable all the time. And a lot of like skill expression on Mercy, like I know she has more limited skill expression than other heroes, but it comes from using things like natural cover and like coordinating with your team to secure res and like things like this. Like I don't think it's like hampered by line of sight. Like there's way bigger fish to fry than Mercy's res, I think.
Who up riding they Valkyries, chat? I know I am, and I know my co-caster Jag definitely is as well. We're shifting gears a little bit here. We're shifting it over to the Divine Division, and I know we're excited because we got a banger coming up for you, a potential glimpse into our grand finals in the upper semifinals. Jag, why don't you tell them who we're seeing today? They can see on the graphic, but why don't you tell them?
Just don't read it, chat. Just don't read it. You're hearing this for the first time. Yeah, there it is. It was never there in the first place. It is going to be the Illinois State University Redbirds taking on Pirates in pajamas. There they are in all their glory for the first time ever. And like you said, I mean, these two teams are looking absolutely dominant in their own way. So this very well could be the grand finals one way or another. But unfortunately, for one of these teams, they're going to be going down for the lower bracket. The loser going to have at least another lifeline, but you know, that's just how a tournament works. One team's going to win, one team's going to lose. But as you can see from our bracket, it's been a very tumultuous day. Round one having an incredible amount of forfeits. Unfortunately, some teams not able to participate in the rest of the tournament. So already awaiting them in the upper finals is going to be Moon Gorillas, that console primarily team. So that's going to be very interesting to see that one later on after this one finishes up.
Yeah, Moon Gorillas have made quite the bloody swat there. You saw they had the 2-0 versus Half-Life. Unfortunately, yeah, the forfeit against Timeless Ethereal. I was looking forward to seeing Timeless Ethereal as the resident calling all heroes girl. Being a big fan of that team, it does kind of suck not to get to see them play at this point in time. But hey, we're still going to get to see a little bit later on today what Moon Gorillas is really made of. And we also get to see, again, this clash of contenders tier talent, Redbirds Esports versus Pirates in Pajamas. And both of these rosters are so incredibly stacked. Redbird Esports has only gotten more stacked over the past couple of months, adding in talent like W. Maimon, Skyle, Admiral. You still got Lethal on there and Ariel 2. Heading it up there with that Wrecking Ball in the center. I've seen this team scrim. They are scary. They're very much so on the Lucio Zen train. Not something that we're going to get to see out of them today. Probably going to have to see Admiral making a little bit of a swap off of that Lucio and onto something a little bit more angelic, perhaps. But regardless, I see no reason to ever doubt this roster.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm definitely biased. Lethal and Admiral, my boys from the Spitfire, so definitely rooting for them in this tournament. But I think looking at this roster overall, this has been kind of an overhaul. Redbirds was at one point the best team, not only in collegiate, but in contenders. I feel like last year, 2023, while they did do well, wasn't, the same dominance that we've seen previously. They were a dynasty and they kind of fell off that wagon. Now it's completely retooled. It's from all over the world. Like, just looking at this roster, and they have 4 World Cup players, all from different countries. We're seeing 3 of them in this lineup right now, but they have a lot of tools also that are on the bench currently. Kuffa on that tank role could be a huge swap up when the meta shifts, or when it's a tournament that isn't just playing Mercy. So I gotta say, this is my favorites to win the whole thing.
I'd be careful bringing up a World Cup talent, because I'm also looking at Skyle. And Team Sweden didn't do too great in the World Cup, I remember that. But Mamo and Team Great Britain definitely did. But this ain't the World Cup, it's Ride of the Valkyries. And here's another one of these ride or die teams with a lot of pieces that you know and you love. Zolik, I don't think that's what you're going to be playing in the back line, but having a look at Strider on the Wrecking Ball, a hero he's kind of known for, and a potential, I used to call him underrated. Stone, a very, very underrated player, especially on the Mei, but we're in a new meta, a new world where Mei isn't quite as effective because we're kind of moving away from the Brawl kind of metas, so it'll be interesting to see what else Stone really has in him.
Yeah, and while Pirates and Pajamas, has been around for a while too, versus Redbirds, which is kind of a newer roster. Redbirds, they put this together in January, but Pirates and Pajamas have been playing together, for a few tournaments now. This older brand coming back in, it's been resurrected, but they played in Flash Shops, finished 7th through 8th. Barry Community Blast also spent 7th through 8th. The one thing that was different today that they had on their team sheet was Noxus, but it looks like Noxus is not going to be starting out here. It's going to be Chronic and Stone, which has been more of their reliable and consistent DPS lineup. Noxus, on Team Canada, so another World Cup asset, but it's going to be the same old that we've seen previously from the last 2 tournaments from them, which isn't bad. They've played really well, but they've never really been able to break into that upper echelon of, top 4 teams. They're very close now. There's a very good chance they'll be able to do so with all these forfeits. I think actually maybe mathematically they basically will, but we'll have to wait and see how that all pans out. But I really want to see them kind of show up today. I think it's the big thing, especially against a team like Redbirds, who, like I said, tournament favorites, my favorites. If they're able to knock them to the lower bracket, that's going to make them the favorites, absolutely. So Pirates and Pajamas have a little bit of I would say, a hill to climb, but I wouldn't count them out just yet.
Speaking of hills to climb, we're starting off on King of the Hill, or Control, as we like to call it here in Overwatch, and we're kicking it off on Oasis. And I think this is another one of those maps that does on some points kind of allow for a decent level of Pharah play if either of these teams want to go in that direction. Like we did see in the Valkyrie division earlier today, that'd be very, very effective. But I do also think when we go to points like University, where we're going to start things out. Yeah, what do you know? University, my timing is impeccable. When we go to a point like this, it's going to get a lot more cramped, and the level of play, the effective area of a map where a Pharah is going to be advantageous is going to be a lot more limited. So you're probably going to be seeing something a little bit more like what we're seeing Pip hovering over right now with an Ashe to just try and control that high ground, kind of the same area that a Pharah would, but a lot more effectively given the current landscape. Something interesting over on the Redbird side is they're going for something a little bit more pokey and with a Cassidy instead of the Ashe.
You're going to see the Symmetra come out at the beginning too. I'm assuming this will be immediately a swap after they use the teleporter. I'm expecting a Tracer just based on what I've seen from this player previously. Yep, there it is. They were very much known for their Tracer on Team Great Britain. So it's interesting. A bit more pokey, but they still have some dive elements on the sides of Redbird Esports. Pirates and Pajamas, I'd say, playing the maybe more expected or standard composition. They are bringing out the Lucio, which we had talked about before. Maybe not the best now that all the heroes self-heal. And I might even say that the self-healing might be better than Lucio's just general healing overall, passively, unless he amps it up. But they're going to be running it at least out of the gate, and that Zolik is not going to last long.
Yeah, have a look at that kill feed right there. That's exactly where the meta currently is. It's Zen just dominating over Lucio. Lucio kind of has to go aggressive to get any sort of value, but you can't get much more aggressive than Lethal right now, taking down 2 back-to-back, making a 3rd with the headies, just clicking on everybody, make it 4. I almost forgot Divinity was still lurking there, but Lethal damn sure didn't forget.
No, absolutely not. And we talk about, if you're going to have to play this Mercy in Ride of the Valkyries, because that's how the tournament works, who are you going to pocket? We have not talked about Cassidy whatsoever. Cassidy kind of been out of the meta for a while, but if you can dink and you can hit these headshots, he's going to absolutely mow through everyone with that DPS passive. Again, once you hit a shot, that healing applied to any hero is going to be reduced. So as you can see, even if you're not getting the kills, even if you are getting the kills, those shots going to be massive, and Stone going to be taken out of the equation.
With the health increases, the damage breakpoints for Tracer have kind of been changed. You can't really one-tap her as effectively, but Lethal doesn't even care about a one-tap. That's a nice two-tap right there. Onto Stone, back to spawn, more time bought. We're at 45% and ticking, and Redbirds haven't even flinched.
No, they do get style, though, so that's going to be huge. The res, though, immediately going to be there, and the Pulse Bomb trait, so now it's an advantage for Redbird again.
Yeah, there's Maimon again. We talked about him on these flanker heroes, the Tracer, the Genji. Right now, the Tracer coming up in spades, going in for the backline, but it's a slippery one with the Mercy Lucio. Instead, gonna try and have to take the duel with Stone, but Stone doesn't have the positioning to work with. Maimon's got all of this point, and damn near took Stone's life. All for it. Sound barrier coming out from Zolik. This means Pip want to get super aggressive. Gravitic Flux going to come out to try and temper some of that aggression and turn Strider into a pavement pancake there. Pulse Bomb comes out from Stone, but it gets eaten by Aerial. That's absolutely gorgeous from the Sigma player, and I'm really liking this poke composition right now.
I am too. It's so different than what I was expecting. It's kind of this poke hybrid with dive. They have so many different elements, and it's really impossible for Pirates in Pajamas to focus anyone down. Do you go for the shield? No, they're just too solitary. Do you go for the flanker? No, they're just too slippery. But this Bob now that's coming out from Chronic is going to take out Lethal.
Lethal actually gives his life to try and body block so the Bob doesn't touch, but I think it still got just a little bit too close to try and to deny the contest. Maimon goes in with a Pulse Bomb there, takes down Zolik, and Divinity is not going to be able to res that one. But meanwhile, Strider making some big strides in the backline. Maimon has not quite done, but Pip, off the back of Strider's work getting done there, and the Bob from Chronic are able to flip the point at 99.
Yeah, close, but it looks like it's going to be a full team re-engaged on both sides. Just enough time killed for every team to come back. That's going to be the Deadeye. Minefield going to be thrown in, and it just seems like everyone's thrown in, but Lethal.
That's just a carpet bombing with that minefield there. Stone even going in with the Pulse Bomb takes down Lethal, who is in the middle of casting a Deadeye. And there we go. Speaking of Lethal, Chronic looking like it right now with the headshot there onto Admiral. Divinity falls elsewhere, though. I'm not sure how that happened, but that is going to be an opportunity for Redbirds to collect themselves.
It is, and also Divinity, one of the closest to an ultimate on their side. Zolik just passing them, but the Valkyrie could be a huge ultimate to help them sustain through something like a Gravitic Flux that's going to be online momentarily, but Skyle's not long for this world, finally able to find that dive they've been looking for.
Yeah, they know without Divinity in position, they got to go aggressive, and that aggression pays off. They take down Skyle. The res does come through, but while that Mercy was trying to get the other support back up, there was no support given to Lethal, and Chronic trades that out in time, so things for Redbirds have kind of stalled out here, and it seems like Skyle is public enemy number one. You can even see Strider going back in to try and deal a little bit more damage, try and get that pick off again. It does not come through, but it's still slowing the tempo. Redbirds can't quite go in too aggressively, and that's why you want to get Skyle off the point as quickly as possible. Skyle with the headshot there onto Divinity. Valkyrie being forced out by Admiral there. Chronic is in a lot of trouble, doesn't see Waymon coming in behind him. Sound barrier from Zolik coming out. Gravitic Flux on the other side. Rez does come through to get Skyle back in the fight here. It's real scrappy over here in this little room. Lethal, very low HP. Stone putting out the hurt, does find the kill. We're at 90% and counting, and Pirates in Pajamas might have just done enough to mount themselves a full comeback here. The point does flip. There's another carpet bombing that comes out from Strider, and so much damage. The backline of Redboards done and dealt with. Maimon gonna take down Zolik, so it's still scrappy, but it's looking like Pip are gonna find the flip back in their favor.
Yeah, it's looking like it. They get it now. It's coming down to, can they contest long enough? That's gonna be a Pulse Bomb. It's gonna catch out Strider.
Maimon!
Oh my goodness, the Tracer is doing it all right now.
Yep, Maimon with two. Admiral also gonna get the res back onto Lethal, so that front line is back in full force, especially with Aerial back on the Doomfist, and Maimon just bullying Zolik back is gonna find that last kill there. Strider switching over onto the Mauga, but not gonna get a chance to get that big beefy boy on the point. It's gonna be the beef that Redbirds brought to the table being served up for Pip.
Yeah, Maimon has long been considered the best players in EU. Hasn't had that chance yet to get onto a tier 1 team. I know there were a lot of rumblings hoping this player would end up on Spitfire or another team during the last season, but here they are showing exactly why in the future of Overwatch you should be considering them for your team, because they are damn good. And it wasn't just this Tracer getting it all done at the end of the day. It was a great team effort from Redbirds all around, getting that first capture that helped stall at the point just long enough. But Maimon definitely taking a lot of weight off of Redbird's shoulders, helping them get back into the fray, helping them win that first point. The good teams can win in the easiest situations. A great team can win it out when it's that close.
And I mean, and these are two great teams, and you saw how close it was. Like, Pip, like, nearly battled back, and that's been off the back of Strider, I believe, for a lot of it, going in on those aggressive plays to try and take down Skyle. And you can even see right now, the flankers from Pip are looking for a potential angle, somewhere where they can catch Skyle out, but they're not going to find it. They're only going to find Maimon and his sword coming back through. Recall forced out, not going to find a whole lot there. But still, you gotta be worried about Maimon at all times. Strider going in for a big slam. Very low HP, and the Cassidy nade hinders him. He doesn't get to go for the slam. Aerial cleans that one up. Strider done, gone. Divinity getting cleaned up. Pip gonna fall. Maimon is going absolutely crazy. That's gonna be 3 for him at the tail end of that fight. It's all just cleanup duty. Redbird's gonna take first cap yet again.
Admiral pulling out the Glock, the Battle Mercy, and stealing what could have been a full team wipe for Maimon. But overall, I'm seeing where Redbirds are really succeeding, and that is whenever Strider tries to go in, they're just like absolutely destroying them, focusing all the resources into this Wrecking Ball, the Discord, the damage boosted lethal Cassidy, the Tracer primary fire, everything is being thrown at them, and that pulse bomb on a Divinity is going to stop Pirates of Pajamas in their tracks.
Maimon also gonna get stopped in his tracks, though. That should be Resbul there. Ariel even gonna put up the shield so that Admiral can get it up there. Stone goes in to try and punish, not gonna be able to find a whole lot, forced to recall out. Strider now, once again, though, has his eyes locked firmly on Skyle, but look at the peel coming back for Redbirds. They know better than to let their Zen fall, courtesy of a errant Wrecking Ball in the backline. Skyle, safe as houses right now.
And that was a big focus for Redbird, is they gotta keep this Zenyatta, you know, safe. They gotta try to protect them as much as possible. You can see the dive immediately from Strider onto them.
What a rock there from Ariel, not gonna let the pile driver come in. So much peel, but while everyone was peeled back, trying to take care of Skyle, they forgot about the point. Pip gonna go ahead and flip it. Stone with the pulse bomb there, takes down Ariel. That nade is going on a journey to try and take down Stone, but Redbirds Esports are buying themselves back in with a pickoff there onto Chronic, and Admiral again with a melee kill this time onto Zolic, and Lethal trying to get rid of this hamster in the back line. Strider gets out to safety, but with only 16% in capture percentage to their name.
Yeah, Strider has the rollouts, but they don't have the team synergy right now to take down Redbird Esports. They keep trying to commit so much onto Skyle. They do force out both support ultimates there, so at least they hurt the economy of Redbird Esports. They still have the pulse onto their name, and they still have point percentage. This is last fight territory. They win this one, they're going to take the map 2-0.
I mean, and Maimon wants to go in right there, takes down Chronic. Divinity is too low. The sound barrier has to be forced just so Divinity can get the res at all, but gonna pay for it with their life. And now Chronic is all by himself, can't quite deal with this Tracer. In fact, is gonna somehow unalive themselves. Their Aerial, though, does go in with that Gravitic Flux. Pip have once again flipped the point now, but there just doesn't seem to be enough pressure for them to be able to hold it. That said, there's a lot more pressure coming out, and Redbird Esports, they take it back.
Yeah, I don't know if Chronic's gonna be able to touch in time, and they do not. So a 2-0, two very different sub-maps. The one, 100-99, going the full distance. This one, a little bit more of a dominant showing from Redbird, only 100-25%. 2-0 nonetheless, and our tournament favorites looking just like that here on Oasis.
I mean, with Strider in this Pirates in Pajamas lineup, you know that the Wrecking Ball comp is something that they're going to want to do, and the easiest way to play this Wrecking Ball composition with these dives is to try and pressure out a backliner like Skyle, and that's what they kind of learn in real time on University, and they realize how close they get on University to actually taking the whole map. It doesn't end up working out in their favor, so then they go to Gardens and they go, well, we know what works for us, we got to try to do it, but at the same time, Redbird, they learned, like, okay, they're just gonna keep going for our Zenyatta. If we just peel and catch them in the act every single time, then, like, they can't really do anything. And yeah, they only have to give up that little bit of capture percentage to do it, because they're all peeling back to try and keep Skyle alive, because they're all working in this collective death ball, trying to deal with Strider, trying to deal with Stone, all these flankers. You give up a little bit of point percentage in order to keep your entire team alive. You come back. Lethal just does this all day long, and what do you even do about it?
I mean, this, as well as what Maymon was doing, these DPS on the side of Redbird Esports have just been looking phenomenal. And exactly what you're saying, you know, as long as everyone peels back for Skyle when they're getting dived on, it's really like no worries. And everyone has movement. Even the Cassidy can roll, and that also gives them a reload, so you can just roll back in. You can use the magnetic grenade, which is going to hinder the Wrecking Ball, so then they can't roll away like they want to. So this is a great composition that we've seen put together for Redbird. It's a bit more hybrid than I was expecting. You know, it's not a traditional poke, it's not a traditional dive, but it is doing wonders, and it's playing to the strengths of the side of Redbirds. And what more really can you ask for? I gotta say, on the side of Pirates in Pajamas, so like you might want to try to get that Torbjorn out, because right now you are not dealing with the Tracer who is flanking you.
You remember the olden days in like early Overwatch League and even pre-Overwatch League when sometimes the main support player would actually come out on a Torbjorn? Like that was an actual thing that used to happen on like Nimbani. Like you remember that?
I remember, yeah, I'm like thinking about like, you know, their supports used to flex a lot. Like I remember like season 1 playoffs, you'd have the flex support go to Roadhog for some reason. There were a lot of interesting things you could do before roll swap or roll lock. Now, I mean, you could see Zolik swap to DPS. Don't think that's gonna happen, but I just think Pirates in Pajamas, they gotta figure out something here. Go back to the drawing board. Maybe swap off of the Lucio, because as you said before, like we don't think it's necessarily the best pick. If you're not engaging quick enough, if you're not able to actually just roll over the other team with your kind of dive, it doesn't really do that much for you in the long run. And here I think you're seeing that the Lucio, like, while it's had its merits a little bit here and there, the sound barriers just hasn't been enough. But I mean, this is what we're talking about. Look at the damage from both of these DPS players. Almost exactly the same, only a like 50 difference between each other.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to see like which one stands out a little bit more, but for my money, it's Maymon. And you got to realize that Lethal was on the Cassidy, had the Mercy Pocket for a lot of that, and that is definitely a threat, especially when it comes to that peel. Lethal was pretty stalwart, kind of hard to dispatch, you know, 5 deaths, but meanwhile, Maymon, very self-sufficient. Only 1 death, doing 12k damage, 16 final blows for Maymon there, and like we were saying his name all map long, but I do kind of want to pivot back. You know, I've been going back and forth like a pendulum on these two guys right now, but I want to go back over to Lethal and talk about how I actually really like the Cassidy in this poke composition. I think it plays really, really well at the mid-range on those kinds of maps. I don't know if it's going to work as well on Blizzard World, which is going to be Pip's map pick, but I do very much so like it with the Mercy Pocket, especially going up against a dive composition with a Wrecking Ball in it. You can use the magnetic grenade that everybody despises, and I know I'm on team give Cassidy his flashbang back, but that's just me. Lethal doesn't even need it. Can use the magnetic grenade to go ahead and slow Strider down, put out consistent damage onto the Wrecking Ball over and over again. That coupled with the Discord and just the headshots that Lethal is able to hit, living up to his namesake, quite lethal.
Quite deadly as well. And I gotta say, like, as you know, someone who's worked with Lethal before, it's really cool to see kind of his transformation since leaving Overwatch League. I feel like at one point he was considered like, oh, he's just a tracer specialist, but he has really been dominant on all realms of hit scan, especially on the mid to long range. Like Cassidy, as we just saw, looks really, really good, but I'm expecting the Ashe now. The Ashe was the, you know, hero that he chose for his portrait. I'm expecting it now that we're going to a map like Blizzard World. As you said, you know, the Cassidy's probably not going to do as well with a longer range map with more sightlines, so I'm expecting the Ashe to come out to play, and that's like been one of his best picks, but he can play a lot. In Barry Community Blast, I saw him playing Mei actually most of the time, so this is a guy who can do it all. And yeah, maybe he doesn't have the as flashy stats as Maymon, but they're both getting it done. They're both doing quite good work. It actually looks like it is going to be the Cassidy for now, so maybe they're saying, hey, like, this is working and we like it. I think the big reason you keep the Cassidy is, well, an Ashe has Coach Gun, which like could displace the Wrecking Ball when they jump in. The magnetic grenade is just the better ability when you're trying to disrupt dive, like 100%, because you're hindering them. The Coach Gun displaces them a little bit, I would say, but I think the magnetic grenade, if you can focus them down quick enough with the Discord Orb, is just going to do wonders.
I feel like the magnetic grenade is very RNG about it though, but it still is working wonders. Like Lethal has definitely managed to tame it. We talked about how good Cassidy is at mid-range, and I'll say that the range is the only thing mid about Lethal's Cassidy right about now. Chronic Widow going for a grapple shot. We see this a lot on Blizzard World. Not gonna find anything. There is that Ashe coming out again, so no real compositional switch-ups from either side.
Yeah, both want to play what they've practiced, and I mean, so far it's working for Redbirds. I think the big thing for them versus what we saw in the last match with Rad Rocket was that Rad Rocket, when they tried to play the Sigma, they could not rotate quick enough. Redbird has been really great at rotating. We'll see if this Baltic is able, though, to help Pirates in Pajamas get them into the sights of Redbirds a little bit quicker.
You've got a nice pinch setup right now with Strider, and then with Chronic up here on this high ground with both the Harmony Orb and the damage boost. Truly, truly very defensible up here, and quite the glass cannon. You saw Maymon trying to go in there, but now it's Lethal coming through to try and deal with Chronic. There's that nade coming out, and a couple more headshots. Lethal is also going to be in position to deny the res. And meanwhile, Skyle just going crazy. Everybody on the side of Redbirds just winning their duels outright, and that's one dead fight for Pip.
Yeah, that's just a bit of a hand stiff that time around. Everyone, like you said, winning their 1v1s for the most part. It looked like Pirates of Jump, they were trying to isolate some heroes on the side of Redbird, trying to find them some headshots of their own, but at the end of the day, they're the ones going back to spawn, having to reset, and having to go back to the drawing board. I do like that they take the high ground away from Redbird. That's where Sigma usually wants to be, is playing a little bit higher up, has like mid-range themselves with their primary fire, where there's definitely a limit to how far it can go. But instead, they're just kind of running in one by one and taking too much poke damage to actually initiate the way they want to.
I think it's Maymon, by the way. I think they have to try and take down Maymon. There's a nice headshot there onto Lethal, and the pressure coming out. Strider gonna go ahead and clean that one up with the help of Stone, and there we go. That's the opening that Pirates in Pajamas really needed, taking down Admiral, and I don't think the res even came off, so now Pirates in Pajamas, they can go ahead and get themselves on the point. There's a pulse bomb out to Stone, not enough to kill him, but is enough to make him fear for his life. There's the Deadeye coming out from Lethal, though. Pirates in Pajamas gonna go ahead and evacuate back to the high seas. Strider hanging out here in this little alcove here, gonna get pounced on by Lethal and the whole gang. Strider is gonna fall Bob invested from Chronic to try and keep the capture percentage, but Pirates in Pajamas haven't even gotten a tick yet, and they definitely aren't gonna be getting that with the Transcendence coming out. Hinder Grenade coming out onto Stone. Lethal with a nice two-piece there to take down the front line, and Redbird's esports bend but do not break.
No, they don't, and that res did get off onto Lethal, so that was a huge part of actually how they won that fight, is that Lethal used the Deadeye to start things off, then Admiral popped the Valkyrie to fly back to the point, and everyone from Pirates in Pajamas had to clear the point because they didn't know where that Deadeye was. It was from around the corner, they had to run away, not having any LOS on it, didn't want to get surprised, and that just gives them time to reset. There were a lot of ultimates used on both sides, and Pirates in Pajamas will still have this minefield ready to go, but at the end of the day, no progress given to Pirates in Pajamas, and now that's not where Strider wants to be.
That was such BM, so much grief. The Hinder Grenade, the Gravitic Flux, the Discord, the Slam, everything coming out just to deal with Strider. And yeah, it works. Strider very much so dealt with. Stone next up on the chopping block. A nice little Blick melee recall from Maymon. We see you there. Meanwhile, Chronic, Lethal with the 3K Deadeye in the stairs. What do you even do about that?
You cry. That's all you can do about that. That is a GG go next moment. And right now, that's exactly how it's looking for Pirates in Pajamas, running out of time. They might get full held here on this point. They've swapped onto the Sigma last second. Really, your saving grace here is that Stone gets a really nice pulse bomb. You force Admiral in a position where they can't res. And Zolik maybe gets the Valkyrie in time. That is what you're praying for here, because you were down to 10 seconds.
But Maymon's checking him. Like, you can even see they took a quick little duel there. Maymon knows exactly where Stone is, so Stone is going to have a hard time trying to get into the back line. Meanwhile, Lethal having not so hard of a time at all, hitting those headshots onto Chronic. The res might be able to come through for that, but no, Lethal denies it, and Maymon is still going absolutely crazy. Redbird's esports say send anyone you want to try and capture this point. Just don't send anybody you want back.
Lethal asking, how did my E get you, by the way? I guess, like you said, just RNG sometimes of that Mega Grenade. You never know when it's gonna lock on out of nowhere, or it's just gonna go flying off into the bushes.
That's why I say give the flashbang back, please. Like,
before you got fluxed. Even Lethal's not sure how that happened, but maybe Cassidy just stronger than we all anticipated. I mean, he's always been kind of a beefy cowboy, got that health buff a while ago, and now even more health with the recent changes, so he's definitely a little bit more sustainable than he used to be in the past. Like, I would say he really was a glass cannon at one point, like Zenyatta was, even though Zenyatta had the rechargeable shield, so that was like the one advantage. All he had was the roll. It's like, once you use the roll, GG, good luck. You either headshots or you die.
He was a glass cannon before, but with like the changes, the DPS passive, and with a Mercy attached to the hip, like, you've gone from a glass cannon to a Sherman tank.
He's the artillery strike. He's literally everything you'd ever want from a DPS character, as long as you can hit heads. And Lethal is letting heads roll right now. But it's not over just yet for Pirates in Pajamas. They have to have the hold of a century, a full hold. that only let them end in a tie as they did not get any point percentage. But if Redbird Esports get 33%, that is it. All they need is one take to send them into that winners finals against Moon Gorillas.
And I want to throw just a little bit more love Lethal's way, by the way, because he's winning out duels against Chronic and Zolek at ranges where Chronic should be favored. When we're getting a little bit more into the mid to long range, where Ashe, in theory, should be outclassing Cassidy, but she just isn't. Lethal is just getting the better of these duels, and especially with the Mercy, again, attached at the hip, being able to hit those headshots at range is something absolutely special. And speaking of special, we got Maimon winning another duel against Stone. This very much so feels like a DPS diff. I hate to call it that early, but Maimon and Lethal are just operating on wavelengths that the rest of us simpletons can't even comprehend at this point in time.
Redbirds have put together one hell of a roster for this year.
Oh my
as
god,
they just
Lethal.
Get elimination after elimination. The ending was never in doubt. Redbird Esports dominant from beginning to end, going to the winners finals and doing it in style. Wow, just what a performance. And Lethal, again, another play of the game.
A second ago, you were like, it's not over yet. Pirates in Pajamas still have a chance. They can hold this one. And then you were like, the ending was never in doubt. I think you were more correct the second time. I think it was over, once Pirates in Pajamas failed to get that, at least that first tick. But I think with how dominant that take was, just again, top to bottom, everyone winning their 1v1s, Maimon taking the 1v1s against Stone, winning them just flat out outright. Lethal winning 1v1s or 2v2s against the Zolek Chronic duo at range where Ashe should be favored. Lethal doesn't give a damn about your range, right? All he has to do is hit enough headies to make you fall, and he's been hitting them nonstop. Check him, PC. That's not normal.
From hopium to copium in a moment. I was thinking maybe they can make it happen, but I gotta be positive. I gotta, show both sides of the coin, but unfortunately it was heads every time for the side of Redbird Esports. They were flipping everything from the point to just flipping heads right off their bodies with those headshots. Just an amazing performance with a composition that I was not expecting. It's definitely one that's unique. I mentioned it a lot more on the first map of this hybrid poke, hybrid dive, and it kind of gives you the best of both worlds. You got heroes flying at the enemy team, but you also got a lot of protection and stationary kind of holding power for your backline. And Skyle was at one point kind of the most wanted person in this lobby, was constantly being dove on, but I'd say especially on this map, just didn't have nearly as many worries. The Wrecking Ball didn't seem to be as impactful on a map like this. They couldn't really find the right dive initiation. That's the nade they were talking about in chat, by the way, that lets them get brought up right into the gravitic flux.
Oh, if that Deadeye wasn't a 3K, the Pulse Bomb would have been, so Lethal just kind of snaked a 3K right out from under Maimon. It seems like the only real competition here is between the Redbirds DPS as to, like, who's gonna be, like, the star player, because it kind of goes either way, top to bottom. Like, Redbirds Esports, they're scary. They're just a scary, scary, dominant team. And again, it looked close on Oasis University, and that was the last time that we ever thought it would look even remotely close. You talked about how, like, Skyle was the most wanted player for Pirates in Pajamas. After a while, it kind of felt like the most wanted thing for them was just oxygen. Please let us breathe.
Oh, yeah, it's a rough one. It was a rough loss, but the good news for them, they're not out of this. They still got the lower bracket. We are assuming that they'll have a good run, potentially even get a rematch in the grand finals later on tomorrow. But before that, we do have another interview coming right at you. We're going to be taking a break before that, so stick around, folks. We got that just on the other end of this break.
Welcome back, everybody. How are you guys all doing? I want to go ahead and say I did wear my fanciest outfit that I could today, and I think that's a good thing because despite that, I wasn't anticipating witnessing a funeral today. But that's just what happened. The Redbirds Esports pretty much just murdered Pirates in Pajamas in cold blood, and we got Skyle here to give the interview / eulogy for Pip from Redbirds Esports. Skyle, how are you doing?
I'm good.
All right, so easy question to kick things off. Were you sweating like at all that game? Like, was there any worry or any doubt going into this?
No, not really. We knew they had they wanted to play ball, so we just played the heroes that were good versus ball, like Sen and Cass. And it felt pretty, felt smooth.
Definitely worked out. We talked about Zenyatta being good against Wrecking Ball. However, there were some moments of struggle for you, particularly on that first point of Oasis on University. There was a lot of focus fire on you, but it seems like as the series went on, you guys were able to get better at countering it. Were there any specific adjustments that you made to make sure that you were surviving, or any adjustments that your teammates made to help you survive all those engagements?
I think we just we were like walking around a bit alone, and we just started playing more together when the ball came in, and we all survived.
Absolutely, you did. There are some crazy stats from Blizzard World that I think we're going to go over in just a little bit that kind of show how much you guys ended up surviving. But one last question for me. Look at the stats right now. Oh my goodness. I mean, you didn't even die on Blizzard World. Everyone else died once except for Ariel 2, and that is, that's not bad at all. Pretty damn good. Everyone else just having a field day. Damage looking great. Lethal having almost 7,000 damage. Holy moly. But I gotta ask, the Redbird squad that you guys have put together, mostly new roster, Lethal coming back, Ariel 2 coming back, but everyone else brand new. What is your, overall goal? What is an accomplishment for the squad that you guys are looking to achieve? Not just in Ride of the Valkyries, but looking at the entirety of collegiate and the path to pro that's gonna be ahead.
I mean, the goal is obviously to win as much as possible. I feel like we're gonna try to play as much as we can in different tournaments and just try to win everything.
You're off to a really good start so far. I mean, you definitely look to be the favorites, at least in this tournament right now. We were looking at the bracket and thinking all right, maybe Pirates in Pajamas is the next up, the only one that could maybe kind of make you guys work for, but it didn't even look like that was the case at all. They just kind of flopped over, especially on Blizzard World. You kind of just rolled right over them. Is there any other team in this bracket? I mean, your next matchup, we're going to look to the future. Your next matchup is against Moon Gorillas, who have been kind of a surprise in this bracket. Do you have any worries about them or anyone else left in this bracket after defeating Pip?
I think when we played Moon Gorillas in the group stage, we underestimated them, and we're not going to do that again. So I think it's going to be pretty easy next time we play.
Skyle says it's going to be pretty easy. All right, I'm looking forward to this one. That's a little bit spicy. We're going to probably get into that matchup here in just a little bit next. But first, before we go, thank you very much for the interview, Skyle. Before we send you on your way, is there anything else you want to say? Any shout outs to chat, your team, other teams, anything? The floor is yours.
Just thanks for supporting us, anyone. That's it.
Simple as. Thank you for supporting them. And hey, I mean, with a roster like this, putting up numbers like that, it's kind of hard not to want to support them and see them do great things, as we already saw all of them doing pretty great, and in some cases terrible, awful things that we shouldn't be able to show on stream, but we did at the Redbirds Esports, rolling right over Pirates in Pajamas. Thank you so much, Skyle. It's been a pleasure. And yeah, chat. That was, we promised you a banger, and it wasn't in the way that we thought it was but I think it still kind of ended up being. But, I mean, 2-0. Ouch.
If you like seeing good gameplay, you saw it on one side. You saw one side play absolutely phenomenally, and I feel like Pirates in Pajamas yeah, it's going to be a rough loss, but there's a lot of learnings from this. There's a lot of takeaways. You heard from Skyle themselves say, hey, we knew they were going to play Wrecking Ball, so we were just going to counter that. And that's exactly what they did. So I think if you're Pirates in Pajamas, you're hey, is there any way we could play this differently? Maybe we switch up the tanks. Maybe we try to even play a mirror matchup with the Sigma, try to go for more of that hybrid poke dive instead of more of a pure chaos comp. There's so many takeaways from this that even though it's a resounding loss, it doesn't have to only be a negative. There are ways you can regroup from this and play better going forward.
And you know, going down to the lower bracket, they're still a very capable team with a lot of talent. Again, we talk about Strider, and we're in a meta where we're seeing a lot of Wrecking Ball and a lot of these very self-sufficient style of dive compositions where you're going up against Strider. Of course, you know Pirates in Pajamas is going to bust out the Wrecking Ball. Of course. Right now, that is going to be Half-Life's cross to bear down in the lower bracket, as those two teams will battle it out to try and get back to the grand finals, where the winner of our next match, Redbirds Esports versus Moon Gorillas, will be waiting for them. We've got that on the other side of a break. Don't go anywhere, chat. We will be right back.
Mercy is a hard hero to play. Go. This is actually pretty split. Nobody is on a hard, like, agree or disagree stance, but everybody, there's like a good amount of people on both sides of somewhat agree and somewhat disagree, and 2 people in neutral.
I think like she has a very low like skill ceiling. Like there's not much to gain, and her floor is also like quite low. But it's also like about the nuance, like the skill expression, how you res, how you move is like what makes it up. So she's very, very easy to learn and like medium to master.
I definitely agree with what Brightside said, and I feel like my main reason for thinking that Mercy's one of the harder heroes to like play is because you have to have really, really, really good map awareness. You know, being able to slingshot around the map, have really good positioning. I mean, that's with a majority of support heroes, but with Mercy, like, you know, we only have so much cooldown on our GAs, you know, with our ultimate too. Like we have to play around the map so much, and that's like a support's like thing. Their main thing is staying alive. So if they don't have good map awareness and stuff like that, like that's my main reason for thinking that Mercy is hard to play, because it takes time to like learn where you can stand, where it's easy to get hit by something, you know, and plus knowing characters' abilities too. Like it really does take time to like know all this stuff. So that's my reasoning.
Would you argue that there's a lot of that only applies to Mercy and not so much other characters in the game?
I would say majority of my argument would probably go more towards like the positioning and stuff and map awareness. Like the whole positioning thing, like yeah, of course, like support is support and every support should have fair positioning. But I think mostly for Mercy, like because we have so much mobility, like that's where my importance comes from.
I've been playing this character since she had a 5-man res as her ultimate, and she's gone through so many changes over the past few years. I do believe that she's a great starter hero for anyone like starting in Overwatch, but there is a level of technicality to it that people can increase their gameplay abilities and make her actually viable in higher tier gameplay. So I'm kind of in this neutral area of, yeah, she's a great starter hero, and yeah, she can be very easy, especially at lower ranks, but there is like a skill ceiling that can go much higher than like what she's originally supposed to be at.
I disagree with the fundamental idea that certain heroes are easy or difficult. I think that anyone who can't recognize the individual like mechanics and skills that go into playing a certain hero well are usually just either very naturally good at the hero or actually really quite bad at the hero. I've never seen anyone once earnestly say, oh, this hero is really easy, and then load in and actually play them well without having practiced it. It's usually complaints you see for like Mercy, Moira, Symmetra, Mei, anything that, like Right Click said, doesn't have that like hard, raw aim requirement. But the number of times that I've seen someone throw a game with a bad res or a bad wall or a bad teleporter, like, I just think that there are no easy or difficult heroes. I think you need to be skilled in a variety of ways to get a variety of different values.
Okay. Sogmaster, do I see you shaking your head, disagreeing?
Somewhat. I'm kind of on the fence. More in the sense of that some characters are point and click and you can automatically aim, such as Symmetra, and that some characters you have to actually aim, such as Kiriko or Baptiste. There's definitely such thing as an easier hero just to learn, like, you know, if like a silver or a bronze player were to start the game, or anybody were to start the game, they would naturally gravitate more towards someone like Mercy maybe, or maybe they would gravitate towards someone who can be a little bit easier to pick up at first. But some characters are more or less in tune with like a beginner more than like a higher class kind of character, if that makes any sort of sense.
I don't really think Mercy is hard to play, but she's definitely harder to get value value with, because you need to have mechanical skill, etc. Playing Mercy for a lot of people is just walking around and holding healing, while it doesn't bring a lot of value most of the time. She could be easy to play, so she's not hard, but she's just easy to make plays with, etc., like getting safe reses off or even maybe kills.
I totally agree with the last person who was speaking, because I think that Mercy is not hard to pick up, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I'm gonna take this question further, and a lot of people will hate on Mercy and think oh, she's so easy to play, people who play her are boosted. I really don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's actually good for the community, because even if she's not considered a super hard character, Overwatch is a very inclusive FPS game where a lot of skill expression is through things other than and I don't know the right term for this, but hit, scan, aim. If people want to argue about what hero is the hardest, I think, and they're thinking solely about aim, they should go play Fortnite or Call of Duty. This game is way more similar to World of Warcraft, where you've got tanks and healers and DPS, and there's just a lot of nuances to different heroes. And so I completely agree. I think Mercy's not hard to pick up, and invites a lot of new people to play Overwatch, which I think is good. However, I do think there are better picks. In top 500, people usually will not be happy that you're on Mercy. There's just usually better heroes to pick right now, Ana, Bap, and Kiri. So that's what I would say.
DPS is the easiest role in the game. Go. I'm actually pretty shocked to see this, because I feel and listen, Twitter isn't the most accurate, credible, source to get my news, okay? But I do see a lot of people on Twitter, a lot of support players in particular, saying that DPS is the easiest role in the game. So I was very curious to see what people say about this.
Okay, I'm gonna get absolutely cooked on Twitter. Don't clip this, don't post this on Twitter, but out of everything in Overwatch, every role, tank, support, DPS, I kind of feel that, DPS is kind of sitting on the back line, while the supports try to keep the DPS and the tanks alive while also giving intel on other spots. The tank has to control the tempo as well. If you get one bad tank, you basically lose a game. DPS, you could probably have 2 really bad DPS, but if you have a good tank and you have some good supports, you could basically just carry the game on that. In my experience, there have been so many times where tanks and supports have completely carried the crap out of just DPS in general. That's not to say that one's easier than the other, because I believe that every role is created equal. Quote me on that. Every role is created equal, I promise. But just in the grand scheme of things, I feel like DPS is kind of less intuitive, I feel.
I can't wait to cut that out of context and make that my Twitter preview clip.
Please don't, please don't, please don't.
So I definitely agree with majority of what Swagmaster said, but the only reason that I stayed and somewhat agree is because there is a bit of a skill level to playing DPS and knowing who to target and whatnot. But I agree with they don't have to carry as much. The bad tank is that's it, it's important to have a really good DPS on your team, because if you have 2 bad ones, I mean, there's still a chance, because you can pick it up, back up with support. But DPS just kind of has to I feel like they have a little bit different mobility, and they are able to maneuver around the map as much. And, as long as they're doing enough damage, I mean, I'm in a lower elo, I'm in silver. I peaked gold, but, I feel like my experience, I've had, supports be able to pick it back up. It's DPS. I feel like I play it a little bit, but it's not as exciting to me as playing support. So I just think it's a little bit easier.
All right.
Welcome back, chat. How are you guys all doing today? My name is CB. I'm joined, of course, by Jag, and I bet you didn't know that we actually have an analyst desk here. We've got the Council of Whoopers here to give their thoughts on the tournament so far. Whooper, I want to ask, by the way, what do you think of the tournament so far? He's very quiet, but he says he thinks Redbirds are going all the way.
That's crazy, because actually that's what my Booper said as well, especially after that dominant 2-0 Like, I'm trying to think of a word, an adjective that we haven't already used, but it was just an absolute slaughter, unfortunately, for the side of Harris in Pajamas. But good news for them is that we have some other things to talk about. Besides just that loss, we also have to talk about the Mercy skin pull and the results that we've gotten so far.
Yippee! Wooper is so excited about it. Let's have a look at the votes that we got so far. Atlantic Mercy is kind of on top, but we got some interesting results going around here. Pink Mercy lagging a little bit behind. I know some people feel a little bit overrated, but that that new Christmas skin, the Jingle Bell Mercy, kind of making up a little bit of ground there.
I feel like people were asking for this skin for so long because it was in a comic like a good while ago. So they're like, please give it to us. And finally we got it. But I gotta admit, I myself used the Atlantic, I'm trying to think of the event it was, the Atlantic All-Star skin. That was it.
Yeah.
Back in like 2019, I think is when it was from. So I used the skin myself, so I'm definitely on board for this having the most votes so far. It just makes sense to me. It's a really, really nice skin.
I have some opinions. I also think it's interesting. It's only by 3 votes, but the Witch recolor is actually beating out the OG Witch skin. That's pretty interesting. I feel like not enough love is being given to Combat Medic Mercy right now. I think that one's very, very underrated. And Wooper agrees with me most of the time. I listen to whatever he says, and he also tells me that he thinks Combat Medic Mercy is very underrated, but is glad that Atlantic Mercy is winning because it does feel like the favorite.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go ahead and set him down back over here to the analyst desk where he can continue to watch the games and continue to judge from afar.
Yeah, and now we've got some more things to talk about because it's winners finals time. We're getting to the final match before the grand finals in the upper bracket. That's pretty dang exciting because we have our 2 best teams throughout the entirety of this tournament that are going to be doing battle once more. They have played once before. I don't want to spoil the result too much just yet, but I think Skyle talked about it a bit in his interview that we had recently. Skyle said, hey, we did not give Moon Gorillas enough credit. Like, we underestimated them and we won't do it again this time. But then also followed up saying it's also going to be easy this time.
It's gonna be easy are the words that very well might either define or haunt Skyle and the entirety of Redbirds Esports, as this is going to be our last matchup of the day. By the way, friendly reminder, we are now in 1st to 3 territory, so gone are the days of 2 Overwatch. Hello are the potential days of 3 Overwatch. We are right back, along with this roster, who I said at the top of the show when we introduced them that they look absolutely scary. Lethal and Maimon went blow for blow with each other to show just how scary this whole roster can be.
Yeah, I mean, who to even point out here? Because I think we're giving a lot of attention to Lethal and Maimon for good reason. They had some incredibly insane damage statistics, like final blows. They both had maps. I'd say like Lethal, especially when Blizzard World showed up. Maimon doing more of the damage or more of the final blows and overall eliminations on Oasis. But everyone as a team has really performed. And I was talking briefly with Admiral and Lethal in our old Spitfire Discord, and Lethal was saying, hey, like, I'm only getting kills because Admiral is like pocketing me really, really well. So you got to give credit to the Mercy. That's what Ride of the Valkyries is all about, giving Mercy players their due and giving them some appreciation. So it's great to see that Redbirds is knowing that Admiral is doing a great job in this position.
I also do kind of want to give a little bit of love to Ariel, by the way, because we were seeing that, like, Sigma versus Wrecking Ball in that last matchup, and we saw Strider showing us some really impressive ball tech, and Ariel was just like, nah, here's a little bit of rock tech for you. Chew on this for you. Just constantly hitting the accretions, the gravitic fluxes, everything to, grief the enemy Wrecking Ball, and that's something that I kind of feel like that tank matchup should, in theory, favor the ball, but in this case, it absolutely doesn't. So, I mean, no weaknesses on this roster. But as we go over from this roster to their opponents, Moon Gorillas, that logo goes hard. Feel free to screenshot. It's, a roster of mostly console players and unknown quantities, but consistently top 100 console players and ones that we probably shouldn't underestimate, a mistake that Redbirds themselves admitted to making.
Yeah, and I think one of the funniest things about this is that Chaewon is actually the only PC player that we have on this team. And you think, oh, like, who's the PC player going to be? It's the person playing Mercy, which, again, not known for being the most mechanically difficult, but still a lot of decision-making you have to do to make that pick work out well. So we'll have to see how these console players do. I mentioned earlier they did play against Redbirds before, and that was a 1-2, and it's the only map that Redbirds has dropped the entirety of this tournament. So this is the only team so far that's actually made Redbirds bleed, which gives me some hope that this will be at least somewhat of a close matchup. I'm expecting Redbirds to have a different look. You know, they talked specifically about their previous one against Pirates in Pajamas. We're playing the Sigma and other characters because this counters Wrecking Ball. But if we're seeing for, you know, for Moon Gorillas is showing us early on, maybe they're going to be going for a Doomfist instead, which would lead to a whole different play style.
Very, very much so. And, you know, again, we talk about Chaewon being the only PC player on this roster currently in the lobby. I'm expecting him to come out with the sh-movement, you know, having that control key, having all the Mercy movement. You gotta step it up if you're the only one with the PC controls, with a team of console players who are probably going to be playing on controller, going to be a little bit less accurate with some of those hit scan changes. But maybe we haven't talked a whole lot about how the Season 9 patch might be hitting the console players, because a lot of us are very PC pilled. We know how it feels to hit some of those hit scan shots with like new Ash or like, you know, the new Zen orbs and how big those feel. But how does it feel for a controller player where you're not going to have the same precise aim, but bigger hitboxes, bigger projectiles, maybe a little bit easier? Maybe the gap there has narrowed a teensy bit.
Yeah, as a console player myself previously in another lifetime, you do get aim assist when you play on console only, but that does go away when you play on, you know, the crossplay or, you know, online only or PC only. So they're not going to have that advantage that you might necessarily get as a console player. But like you said, those hitboxes, those projectiles, going to be a bit bigger. So it'll definitely be easier for someone with a controller to hit those shots that they're used to hitting.
Absolutely, it should be. I don't want to say absolutely. In theory, should be. It will definitely be easier to hit than it was before. But hey, that's the whole landscape. Like, everything's easier to hit than it was before. It's like everybody kind of got that little bit of a buff there with the new hitbox changes. And I think that, coupled with like the DPS passive, those are the biggest changes that ended up coming out of this whole thing. Players should have aim assist, by the way. Yeah. It was enabling crossplay a while ago.
I lied. Yeah. My bad. So they will have aim assist. So that's actually huge, because that's going to make it a lot easier for these console players to hit shots.
I think, like, you know, Tracer is probably going to be pretty lethal with that. So I think we're probably going to want to keep an eye on, first of all, the composition that Moon Gorillas come out here with, and if they do kind of opt for that Tracer player, that's probably what we're going to want to keep a close eye on. And our arena of choice to start things off will be the Isle of Samoa to kick things off for Control.
Absolutely the newest control map in the game, and it's something interesting what we see. I think especially Volcano will be a bit difficult for some ball tech, because that point is just covered, you know, in walls. So like trying to roll around, trying to roll through that, it'll be really difficult. I mean, if you're able to like maybe latch off the side and just like spring in with a pile driver, that could work really well. But I think something like a Doomfist specifically would work really well for that point. I think other points like downtown might be a little bit better for Wrecking Ball. We'll just have to see what these teams come out with, because we were supposed to see Moon Gorillas on broadcast earlier. We didn't get to because of the forfeit. We had to pivot to the Redbirds match instead. So we've already seen a bit what Redbirds can do, but Moon Gorillas kind of, it's kind of a mystery, honestly. We're not exactly sure what they will come out with, and I think that's one of the most exciting things, is they could bring a whole new composition into this tournament, especially considering that they are console players, so their strengths, what they prefer to play, might be completely different than what we see on PC.
It might even be completely different from what we expect to see, because again, we're talking, you know, based on what we think might be strong for a controller player. Well, we haven't lived it quite as much, because again, PC brained a little bit more, me more so than you with your console background. It's okay, no shade, we can still be friends. But we're just kind of like speculating, right? When it comes to what actually might be strong. This is a team that for the most part has lived it and does know what it is. They've been forged in the fires of console Overwatch and know what is strong for them. And hey, it's been working for them thus far. Even with this Season 9 patch coming through, kind of shaking things up a bit, we still had them, you know, going up 2-0 against Half-Life in the first round. And Half-Life is a team that has some pretty solid players, you know, plays people that we know, like Wicca, H-Key, Kindred playing for them, a lot of Calling All Heroes talent, very high tier Calling All Heroes / Contenders talent. Moon Gorillas put them to bed. And now Redbird Esports is next on their chopping block, but we saw Redbirds looking absolutely scary. So how much fear do the Moon Gorillas have as we go into Samoa, kicking things off with a nice cute little Pachimari?
Shout out to Sham, also is on Half-Life. Unlucky about the loss, but we played collegiately together like years ago. Pretty crazy, that was 2020. Time flies, but yeah, Half-Life definitely a decent roster with a lot of known talent, known quantities that ended up, like you said, getting put to bed pretty easily. So I think Moon Gorillas, they probably feel a bit of confidence going to this, maybe versus other teams, because again, they are the only team so far that has taken a map off of Redbirds. And if they stick to this Lifeweaver, like that's going to be very different. I think it makes sense though. You don't have the Discord Orb, but you do have a lot more healing, and you also are able to pull people back, which is great for your Doomfist when they just go a little bit too deep.
Real quick, those poor fish, by the way, in those little pillars, that's like right where a lot of the fire comes through on the side of the point there. Those poor fish, they're really, really in the trenches. And speaking of the trenches, it seems that's exactly where Redbirds Esports want to play from, up here on the northern side of this map. Moon Gorillas, the Lifeweaver is sticking, as is the Doomfist composition, but there is Akaza on that Tracer, and that is who I want to keep an eye on the side of Moon Gorillas. And you can tell right now, Lethal wants to do the same. Skyle, though, gonna take NRG's eyes out with a couple of those orbs of destruction. The res comes through. There's a nade taking down Necry's, and a lot more damage come through from Lethal. Redbirds are controlling this space so effectively right now that Moon Gorillas can't really contest all that well, but with a nice swift shot from NRG onto Maimon, suddenly it feels a little bit more back and forth, but Skyle strikes blood again, and now with the res off the table, Redbirds are very much so in control.
You can see, like, Moon Gorillas, they're trying to play a little bit further back, but the shield from the Sigma makes it so difficult to get really any value from their Ashe. So Necry's, Akaza, they have to just kind of run in, hope for the best. Dinks, I mean, you can do some damage, but not really going to do a ton. I think they're just trying to pocket their Doomfist, but wasn't able to keep them alive in that scenario. The big winner right now, if you're Moon Gorillas, is you did actually take out Maimon. So that is a Tracer out for just a little bit. If you're going to make your move, it's got to be now before they get back into the swing of things.
You can saw for a second there, Redbirds wanted to hold the high ground, but realized Skyle wasn't with them, so they had to rotate back around, and that's going to give up that high ground to Moon Gorillas if they choose to take it. But Akaza doesn't need the high ground, just needs to make up some ground between himself and Skyle, does just that, and takes him down. I don't think the res is going to be able to come through here. There comes a Tree of Life coming out from Dinks, and a Deadeye from Lethal. Not going to find a whole lot, but doesn't need the Deadeye because he's already got the aim. He needs to take down Necry's. That said, Moon Gorillas do flip the point. Admiral pops the Valkyrie to try and buy it back. Moon Gorillas, they're going to go ahead and back up a little bit, give a little bit of space. Ariel doesn't want to let that one happen, but the stick from Akaza finds the kill onto Lethal. The res comes through, and Esports, or Redbird Esports, buying themselves back into this just little by little.
Yeah, can they get the point flip? So that's what they need to get as quick as possible. They do get the Transcendence Force out. Bob and Rez for Moon Gorillas. This is definitely holdable, at least for a while. Maybe even winnable. They are battling back into this fight. And Necry's got to be careful on that Doomfist. Fallen oh so low. Does not get out of that. And now the point might end up flipping.
Yeah, without that Doomfist, it's going to be a hard time holding on to it, but you could maybe say the same for Ariel, who's taking a lot of damage right now, but pumps it all right back onto NRG. Meanwhile, Lethal with 2 more to close that one out. Moon Gorillas evicted from the point. Redbirds stake their claim again.
You know what's so unfortunate there? Was that Dinks on the pedal platform actually C9 the point because they're too high to be considered contesting it, and that's how the point flipped over. Now they've swapped to the Kiriko, which could be useful. You teleport in onto your Doomfist, use the Suzuo if they're really in harm's way, but they're running out of time. They did get some point percentage, but this is last fight territory for Redbirds. They win this one out. They're going to take downtown. They're going to be up 1-0.
I think the Kiriko's a great pick for trying to keep the Tracer in check. You definitely need to keep Maimon in check, but you also need to be watching for Lethal, who takes down Akaza. She never saw it coming. Here comes the Deadeye. Dink's gonna be dealt with as well. Lethal has all the dinks he needs, and Redbirds Esports gonna take downtown quite decisively.
A bit of chaos. It seemed like Moon Gorillas actually had some situations where they might have been able to find a fight win, but this comp from Redbirds, it's so different than I think what most teams are expecting. Who do you focus? How do you play around it? How do you try to beat them at their own game? Just taking down Ariel is a task in its own because Sigma has so much sustainability, survivability with the shield, but also the fact that they are able to eat damage and then get some temporary shields from it is just so good for a low healing comp like what Redbirds is running. The Moon Gorillas, now they're going to try to actually mirror it outright. They're not going to start with the Symmetra, but as we've seen, Maimon just constantly uses it for the teleporter, goes back to the Tracer right away, uses the blinks to get back to their team. Moon Gorillas is actually now going to do exactly that. So this is now, for the first time, really, I think, all day, we're going to see a mirror matchup across the board. Moon Gorillas says, we're going to beat you at your own game. Let's see if they're able to back up that talk.
It had to be a comp swap over here on Volcano, but yeah, not doing a whole lot of backing up that talk. Lethal shutting Nakaza right up, and it looks like Necry's next on the chopping block is gonna get out alive, whiffs that accretion there just a little bit, and Aerial, with the help of the team at his back, just marching on forward. There we go, Necry's dealt with, Lethal with 3, 4 in that fight. You have to deal with Lethal at some point in time.
As my good friend Genji would say, all bark,
there we go.
no
He's spawn
bites.
killing. He's spawn camping. He just takes down Akaza and Dinks. Get this guy out of your spawn right now, Moon Gorillas. You can't just be letting this pest constantly just leeching off all of your players. There's a third, and they're all headshots. Like, Moon Gorillas can't even walk out of their spawn door.
Oh, that is debilitating for Moon Gorillas. I mean, Lethal has all the pockets in the world, the Mercy as well as the Sigma shield. So there's really not much they can do against that, but you got to at least try to stay in spawn, or at least not get your head cut off like Lethal's been doing. The accretion gonna land, but I mean, you can see that like they're struggling. They do get Maimon throughout all this chaos, so now Redbird's actually on the back foot a bit.
That's a really big pickoff. They don't have to be looking over their shoulders, but they still got to be watching for their head falling off of their shoulders if Lethal has anything to say about it. He's playing from the high ground up here, and NRG wants to try and challenge that, but meanwhile, Akaza is going to fall, trying to take a duel with Skyle, being on the losing end of that one, and Moon Gorillas, I mean, they're like kind of dipping their toes into the pool right now, but it's Adult Swim. Redbird saying, get all these kids out of here. Lethal pops the Deadeye, and Moon Gorillas, they're going to go back to the cabana.
They are going to be going back to the cabana for a well-deserved break after this shelling that they are getting. Again, they might get spawn camped once more. They do lose energy. They're getting Gravitic Flux. It is going from bad to worse because throughout all of this, they are running out of time. There's an attempt from Akaza going after Admiral, but instead, Admiral just gets the resurrection, and yeah, kill after kill. They're just getting staggered over and over and over. And it's last fight again. And Redbirds, they have potentially the most important ultimates. They still have their Valkyrie, they still have their Transcendence, so they can just heal throughout most of this damage that's going to be coming through.
Lethal is dealt with. I don't think the res is on the field anymore, so Admiral just going to go ahead and back up and play with his team. Now is the time for Moon Gorillas to start marching forward, but they better pick up the pace, get in step. They got to go for the contest, and it is going to be Necry's able to get that contest there. So now we're at overtime, 99% for Redbirds. Going to go ahead and pop the Valkyrie. Pulse Bomb from Maimon goes wide. Moon Gorillas, it's starting to favor them a little bit more as Redbirds Esports maybe got a little too big for their britches there. Moon Gorillas are able to find the flip.
Now, there's been a few overextensions on the side of Redbirds. Finally, it feels like they're being punished just a little bit. The Riddick Flux going to go off after the Transcendence ends. Great patience.
Ooh. And Akaza there with the follow-up takes down Admiral. Aerial falling as well. Moon Gorillas have finally got some sense of stability here. Redbirds Esports now going to be the ones forced to retreat for the moment.
What is Lethal doing? They are outside of their spawn, but I think most importantly, Moon Gorillas finally was able to capitalize off an advantage. Like, there have been a few times where they'd gotten an elimination, and they just couldn't actually find the follow-up. It looks like they're Lethal just trying to maybe get reset, but ends up staggering themselves. They take out both DPS, so Redbirds finally gonna have to go back to the drawing board, finally getting a taste of their own medicine, if just for a little bit. The big thing is, like, there's no ultimates on their side. They use both support ultimates in a lost fight. Moon Gorillas now, they have both of those ultimates themselves, the Transcendence and the Valkyrie, so there's a good chance they can win this one out. They also have the Deadeye locked and loaded, so they have a big advantage that could force this Samoa to go to a sub-map 3.
It's kind of up to Maimon to try and be the one to negate this Deadeye, but he's constantly being checked, being tagged left and right by NRG and everyone else on the side of Moon Gorillas who are going to go ahead and pop that Valkyrie. Chaewon giving a lot of sustainability for the team as they just try to bully the Redbirds back. You see Akaza lurking with this Pulse Bomb. Where does she want to place it? First, she has to try and deal with this Maimon problem and isn't quite able to do so. So NRG gonna go ahead and pop that Deadeye. Doesn't find much of anything but a shield in his face, courtesy of Aerial. And Aerial now gonna go in with the Gravitic Flux. A stick from Akaza, though, onto Lethal. Takes down Skyle. The res comes through, but you can't res Skyle. That one is now firmly off the field, and Redbirds Esports feel like they're limping their way back into this, though. Dinks takes down Maimon. It's very scrappy, but the Moon Gorillas continuing to hold strong. We're at 97%, 98. Is there going to be a touch? Lethal goes just a little bit shy of getting the touch. Doesn't actually trigger OT, and Moon Gorillas, surprisingly, from where we started on this map, able to flip it and take it 1-1.
No, Redbird Skyle, so they wouldn't underestimate Moon Gorillas, but that time I think the silliness got a little bit to their heads. The spawn camping, the positioning wasn't good, and that snowballed one pick onto Lethal into the submap being lost. Moongorillas having an amazing comeback, being able to bring it back to 100, taking that one and forcing a third and final submap to break this tie. We're going to beach. And, well, they say life's a beach. You're just playing in the sand. Moongorillas probably feeling good about the fact that they just took it to Redbirds on their own comp.
I mean, realistically, Moongorillas kind of had no business winning that whole map, but, like, it felt like Redbirds Esports, yeah, they did underestimate Moongorillas again. It's a mistake Skyle said they would not make, and they did. Hopefully, if you're Redbirds, that doesn't come back to bite you, because these Moongorillas, they got quite a bite of their own. Right now, we're back on that mirror composition, but Lethal has a little bit of a pinch angle. It's putting a lot of pressure on Necryze. Necryze can't walk too far forward, and Aerial has got a lot of space just off of the back of that little flank that Lethal, with the help of Admiral, has been on. You can see NRG with the Mercy Pocket is right here just kind of playing up for these picks on the backliners. Finds Skyle. That is resable. Everyone from Redbirds, though, has to give a lot of ground in order to make that happen, and this is where Moongorillas can start to get a little bit more aggressive. Maimon wants to temper that aggression, though, takes down his counterpart in Akaza on the Tracer again. Redbirds get the first cap. Aerial and Lethal just marching forward, taking what is theirs.
I feel like Maimon has had a much quieter performance, at least so far in this series, compared to the last one. Just every time you looked, it looks like they were in the kill feed, but Akaza has been doing a great job at keeping them in check, going blow for blow, taking that Tracer mirror matchup, but you see finally Maimon starting to get going, gets that pick that helps them snowball this fight win. They get the first capture once again. We'll have to see if they can hold on to this point. Last time they got a little bit too aggressive. You can see this time they're not going to even try doing the funny. They're not going to try the spawn camp. They're going to play on the point, on high ground, just like they should be to have their positional advantage.
You gotta show the Moongorillas a little bit of respect. You can't just be going in their spawn thinking you're gonna take the whole thing, and they may be paying Moongorillas a little bit too much respect right now. That's very disrespectful there from NRG to find two. Maimon and Aerial gonna fall, and that while that was all happening, by the way, make it 3. NRG not quite done. While that was all happening, Redbirds Esports were backing up, and Moongorillas found the flip a little early into that fight.
Yeah, NRG and Akaza just going wild right now. NRG being able to play this soldier, it gives you some advantages over the Cassidy, and the big one is going to be that rocket, the Helix rocket just being thrown into someone's face. Generally, you want to get them a little weak, then you throw them in, it's the final blow, and that caught Maimon out of position. The point flip comes in a little bit earlier than last time, but Moongrill is all the same, again, getting this capture, and now they might have to battle back onto the point.
Moongorillas trying to battle back, but they kind of just step off a little bit there. Losing Akaza definitely hurts them. Dink's gonna go ahead and pop that Transcendence, and Maimon knows as soon as that Transcendence is down, he wants to go in with the Pulse Bomb. He does find the stick, but it's on to NRG. You'll take that, I guess, especially with that Gravitic Flux taking down Necryze, and the rest of Redbirds just gonna go ahead and march forward once again, bully the Moongorillas back. Chaewon next on the chopping block. Not enough movement. He can't get out alive. Maimon is on the hunt.
Gotta be careful again. Don't want to overextend. I mean, I think this is a good call overall. They want to push into their spawn because they want to get those last second kills, get the stagger onto Moongorillas. But you see now, they're not going to commit to that positioning. They're going to back out again. So they are learning from their mistakes. They are playing less silly, I would say. You know, they're giving more respect to Moongorillas in all the right ways, because now, again, they're in last fight territory, but they got to worry about this tactical visor that's coming out on the other side.
Yeah, last time they paid Moongorillas too much respect. NRG took advantage of that. This time, though, the attack visor not going to find much of anything. The recall forced out from Maimon, so he's still safe. Forced to evacuate the premises, though, but as this is all ticking up, we're at 97%. Someone from Moongorillas going to have to get on for the touch, and it is going to be NRG that goes in, but takes a lot of damage, and Aerial and Lethal winning their duels outright while that was all happening. Now it's just NRG and Chaewon trying to find much of anything. Meanwhile, Lethal found Jozen in the backline. Dink's done and dealt with. Chaewon going in for a token contest, but what's a Mercy going to do? And it's a crab. I don't know why we swapped over to the crab view for the end of it. Shout out to our observers. I love you for that one. That was, you know, we had to go away from the crab to get a little palate cleanser because we were witnessing yet another murder on the point there.
Even though NRG does get played, the game isn't able to win that one out at the end of the day. I do like these swaps. I do like that Moongorillas is playing a very similar comp and not the same comp. You know, they do swap this from the Cassidy, but overall, like, they are making this a much more, I would say, close fight than what we've seen previously in any of our series today. Redbird looks like they can bleed. I mean, this is a team, Moon Gorillas, that took a map off of Redbird. Here, they only take the sub-map, but that's something. You know, that's a little bit of confidence going forward that say, like, we did it. You know, we capitalized on Redbird's mistakes, and we can continue to do that. We just have to force Redbird to make more mistakes or give them this false sense of confidence where they do it themselves.
Or maybe it's a case of just giving Redbirds enough rope to hang themselves with, where they, you know, they're playing way back in the spawn. Again, giving Moon Gorillas absolutely no respect, spawn camping, and Moon Gorillas, they flipped that whole point. That was something. That was a spectacle. Volcano was definitely one that will go down in the history books, probably the history books that Redbirds would like to never have to read again. And it goes back to what Skyle was saying, like, we underestimated them the first time. We won't make that mistake again. They nearly did, and it nearly cost them Samoa. They had to pay them more respect when we went back over to the beach, but you know, that gave room for NRG to kind of pop off a little bit. But Redbirds, they just play their game, right? They go back to giving respect, but still playing their game the way it's meant to be played. They don't overextend. They don't have Lethal going into the enemy spawn to just chill and hang out and have a smoke or whatever he was doing in there. Like, you know, you just play smart, right? Like, you just play your composition to its strengths.
Volcano was absolutely one of the sub-maps of all time, but moving forward, Moon Gorillas, they have the pick, so that's the good thing, is they get to pick the next map. We've seen only Blizzard World so far for Hybrid, so maybe we'll see something else. I'd love to see something else, to be honest. Like, the other options being Numbani and Paraiso. Is there anything personally that you think you'd want to see from what we saw? You think we're going to Blizzard World again?
I think
I think you're right. I think you're right, but I don't want to admit that you're right.
I'm a certified Paraiso hater, and I mean, Numbani isn't as bad as it was in the Overwatch 1 days, but I don't like that map either. If it was me, I'd pick Blizzard World every time from those three. But hey, maybe we do want to change it up. Maybe Moon Gorilla's got something cooking that they want to bring to the table. Maybe throw Redbirds off their game, because I know if they throw Redbirds off their game, Moon Gorillas can start to get in the groove and start to play their own game here. So, you know, waiting for their map pick. They're still trying to cook a little bit, decide which of the three maps they hate the least. Again, if it's me, Blizzard World every time. I'm not a fan of Paraiso, and I don't think like it's gonna be a great composition for like the Sigma for Redbirds. I don't know. The Doomfist composition that Moon Gorillas came out here with, by the way, let me throw it back to downtown a little bit on Samoa. They came out with the Doomfist composition, and it felt like they were trying to do the same thing that Pip was doing with their ball composition, right? Trying to focus down Skyle. That didn't work because Redbirds are privy to that now. They know that they can just play back, play smart, play for peels, play as a unit, and Skyle will forever be safe. And even if you do manage to find that pick off, you're going to take so many heavy losses just trying to get in there from Lethal and from Maimon that it's just not really worth it. I'm curious if Moon Gorillas want to try and go back to that Doomfist well again, and maybe that's where you see like a Numbani come into play.
It's a very real possibility for that. I think the counter argument is like, hey, they looked way better when they played the Sigma Mirror. Like, that was when they played closest, because that first sub-map did not look very, very close. Downtown, it had its moments, I guess, but you didn't see them capitalize on their advantages nearly as much as they did later on when they had the Sigma. It is actually going to be Paraiso, so any Paraiso haters in the chat, I think we have one at least that's right here on the broadcast. But for me, this makes a little bit of sense, because if you do want to keep playing the Sigma Mirror, I actually think there's some great high ground, especially on the first part of the map and the third part of the map. I think the second part's a little bit shaky because generally you have to have like heroes that can just like climb up buildings or like jump up onto buildings, or, you know, have a hookup onto buildings that can like get you there. But I think that first and second point as a defender can work really well for you if you want to play more of a poke style. But it could be the Doomfist. They could be just trying to run straight at them, jump on the high ground, and punch them into a wall.
The favela streets phase is very tricky to navigate for both anyone that isn't running like a dive composition, right, on that point there. And even the first point feels like very, very dive friendly. So yeah, I mean, Moon Gorillas, they might be cooking a little bit here, but again, like, you know, Redbirds, they are flexible, I believe. I know we haven't seen Ariel playing anything besides the Sigma, but I believe in their ability not only to make that Sigma work, but also to kind of adapt here, right? Because they did say that this was kind of their composition that they cooked up to counter the dive they expected Pip to come out here with. And you can even see right now, Ariel flashing the Doomfist right away. And this is on the defense, so I think that's going to stick.
I do as well. I mean, once you're out of spawn, that is finalized, and there's no way you're getting back in time Okay, maybe not. Maybe I guess they were still in spawn.
Wait, hold on. Does anyone else see the frog face in that thing on the left-hand side? Like, it's like two eyes, like a smile in between?
Yeah, I see it.
Sorry, my
That's
Paradolia
actually
took over. I didn't want to interrupt too much. Go
very
ahead and cook.
creepy. I feel like that's going to be the stuff of my nightmares now, like nightmare fuel. But I
You're
got baited.
welcome.
It is going to be a Sigma after all. They stayed in spawn before leaving it. And it's going to be this counter comp that they cooked up, like you said, against the dive. So Good Girls, they're going to go for the Wrecking Ball instead of the Doomfist. So we'll see if that helps them, makes any difference. They do have energy on the Sojourn, so there is some potential for, some charged up Rogun shots that maybe catch someone out of position if they're Discord that could go for a one-tap. But I don't know. We've seen this story before of Redbirds where they try to run into them with a Wrecking Ball. It didn't work out that great the first time for Pirates in Pajamas.
Yeah, Moon Gorillas have also made some roster changes. Dinks is actually now off of the Zenyatta and over onto the Wrecking Ball. And you got Ricky coming in for the Zenyatta play now. NRG with a nice headshot there onto Maimon. That's going to be a great way to break your way through. And you can see Moon Gorillas taking more and more space, kind of struggling to deal with this Sojourn on high ground right now. They need to try and find an angle. Dinks, though, takes down Skyle. That's going to make it all the more difficult. And Moon Gorillas, it looks like they may have done it. They're going to get their feet on the point.
Most likely at least one tick, maybe more, depending on if there's a contest that comes out. There are still 2 members alive for Redbird. It's going to be their Tracer, Maimon, as well as Aerial. So actually, no ticks given over. They just back out. That is huge for Redbird Esports. They gave up nothing at the end of the day besides some ult charge, and now they can stabilize. I think that's a miscalculation from Moon Girls. I think they should have stayed on the point for longer and try to get that tick.
Yeah, absolutely. They had like almost the entire backline of Redbirds just completely gone, and all they really had to do was focus down Aerial, but they didn't go for that, so he just sits on the point for free and is still doing just that. Now Lethal gonna come back here with the tack visor. Akaza makes the brutal mistake of face checking that one, and with a little help from Maimon, she's gonna pay for that. And now Moon Gorillas are the ones on the back foot. There's another nice rail shot there onto Lethal. Is going to be resable, but Aerial has still yet to be dealt with, and he's decided to start marching on the back line. Gonna give up that high ground again. There's another rail shot from the overclock coming up from NRG, but Aerial knows just what to do for troublesome Canadians with rail guns. Gonna slam NRG right back down to earth. Akaza finds a pickoff onto Admiral in the back line, though. That's gonna be quite the game changer, especially now with Chaewon getting the res onto NRG. Now it's Aerial in a very uncomfortable position, not where he wants to be. Moon Gorilla's ticking up the capture percentage again, should be able to get a tick this time around. Redbirds, they gotta go in for the contest.
You gotta think though, if they sit on the point the first time, this could be 2 ticks. They could be 2/3 of the way to capturing this point fully. Instead, they are still trying to at least get 50%, but it's going to be, again, NRG with this pocket has been unstoppable.
Lethal, though, with a Helix Rocket onto Akaza. Is that going to be resable? It looks like Admiral going in for a res onto Lethal in the back line. Quite the use of the Valkyrie there. And now Admiral, public enemy #1 for Dinks, not able to dispatch the Flying Mercy. Can't get rid of her. Skyle takes down Ricky, though, gonna pay for it with his own life. Maimon, though, taking down Chaewon. This should be a dead fight now for Moon Gorillas.
And a pulse bomb eaten at the very end of it by Aerial, too. And I talked about capitalizing on the mistakes last map for Moon Girls. It seems like they did not capitalize on their own advantages here. I feel like this should be a situation where they are much more in the driver's seat, but just a misplays in terms of positioning. There, Akaza gets staggered. They're running out of time. They have 0 ultimates online. Chaewon might get her Valkyrie, but this is looking really desperate for Moon Gorillas.
That was dirty from Lethal, and NRG gonna go ahead and clean Lethal's clock for that one. The res does come through there. I'm not even sure how Admiral managed to get that one off with the help of the Sigma Shield is actually there. Yeah, the Suzu as well, and now the tack visor. No respect for Lethal coming on out here, and Akaza gonna go ahead and make him pay for that one. Takes down 2. She's taking down both Maimon and Lethal. The res gonna come out onto NRG. Skyle, though, finally deals with Akaza, but it's just too bloody for Moon Gorillas to be able to get any sort of ground at this. 10 seconds left. Dinks has to go in for the contest. NRG going back to this old faithful perch where he's been hitting tons of rail shots, but he has to get rid of Aerial, who is going to be this constant threat in the back that they just haven't dealt with adequately like this whole time. NRG still has a nice angle, does have the overclock. Aerial still just anchoring down on the point. Gravitic Flux is gonna come out. Overclock, we've done this dance before, you and I. This time though, the Flux goes wide. NRG doesn't get caught here. Moon Gorilla still keeping the point in contention, gonna throw the mines down to keep it that way, and while they're at it, throw Lethal down with a Pulse Bomb from Akaza, and this might finally be Moon Gorillas bearing the fruit of the trees they planted 2 minutes ago, finally going to cap point A.
Yeah, not the cleanest it takes, but a take nonetheless, extending this map, extending their push on attack. And that time, I feel like Redbird, this was the time where, again, they got way too cocky, honestly. They got way too big for their britches, as you had said previously, going straight into them with a tactical visor towards their spawn side on low ground. They lost both DPS as that fight started, and NRG just getting a great angle, being able to power slide out of the Gravitic Flux. Just some great plays overall from Moon Gorillas. They might have not had the best start with, again, I feel like they could have had a lot more point percentage early on, but they finished strong, and that cart will continue to move along, and that is the most important thing for them.
And I also really like this positioning from NRG right now with the Mercy Pocket there. Aerial loses a lot of HP right there. Gonna have to have the Harmony Orb and the Mercy Pocket just to try and keep him alive, but there's so much pressure up here. Pulse Bomb, I think, came out from Maimon somewhat recently. I think it just blinked in and recalled out, but while that was all happening, NRG falls courtesy of Lethal. The res goes back out. Admiral resing up Skyle as well. Back to a net neutral, but Dinks is in a lot of trouble right now, and now there's no res that can bring that hamster back. Maimon gonna be the one going in, pressuring down the backline of Moon Gorillas, and the cart has finally stopped.
A great defensive hold. This high ground will be so nice for a Sigma, because there's so many positions that you have to worry about, but if they're coming at you just from the front, then you can just keep having the shield right over where the cart is, hold this high ground, keep just kind of barraging them. We have the capacity fire, we have the tracer poke. There's so much you can do. Almost gets the pick on to Ricky. Yeah, and that forces out the transcendence. That's huge.
Yeah, and now we're going to be looking for the next ult coming online for Redbirds. They're going to have both DPS ults, and they're going to have the Gravitic Flux, but that's not going to be a factor if Akaza has anything to say about it. She denies the res as well, and there's NRG with the overclock. Moon Gorillas making Redbirds Esports once again pay for their hubris as the cart will march on yet again.
That's such an expensive fight. That's 4 ultimates that they had to use right there to win that. That's Overclock, Pulse Bomb, Valkyrie, as well as Transcendence. Not even to get the full point. So this is good for them. They continue to win out. They continue to push the cart. But Redbird's gonna have a huge advantage. But Lethal, the dead guy, that's not gonna be there for now. That's a big overstep from them.
And you can even see Dinks going in with a minefield, wants to try and deny that res. Skyle, though, trying to clear some of those mines with the Transcendence, but that's a lot more ults being expended. Here comes the Gravitic Flux, but Aerial is taking so much damage from behind. Can't really commit to the follow-up damage there. Maimon takes down Ricky, but is going to pay for it with his own life. Skyle with the pick off there. Lethal, with the help of the Discord Orb, finds the kill onto Dinks, and there was no one else left alive quick enough to touch on the side of Moon Gorillas. It was just NRG and Chaewon, and neither of them were willing to go down, be the one to keep the point in contention, as all the fast flankers ended up falling. And at the end of point B, that's where the cart stops. Redbirds Esports holding strong.
Yeah, it's going to take a little bit more work for Redbird to win this one out, win the second map, and go up 2-0. And just as a reminder, this is a first to 3, not a first to 2 like we had in our previous series. So there will be at least one more map no matter what. If you look at these stats, much more even than really any series that we've seen previously. It's really shared all around. But NRG, even though it doesn't have the most damage on the field, most elims. That is very impressive.
There's 2 things I want to highlight with these stats right now. Aerial only dying 2 times, and, you know, one of them was kind of towards the end there, and the other was, I think that, you know, towards, like, that first lost fight on point A. He lived for so long, and Moon Gorillas were just never able to get rid of him, even when he didn't even have healers alive. The other one, though, is Chaewon only dying 1 time. Versus Admiral, who has been under a ton of pressure going for very, very risky reses. Chaewon has kind of been a little bit more effective on the Mercy here. Granted, has had to do a lot more healing and a lot more of that movement than Admiral has. We have seen Admiral going for some incredible reses with the help of the shields, the Suzus, and just about everything. But, you know, Moon Gorillas, they do have a way in on this.
I think the difference is that Chaewon has been mostly just sticking to energy, like really making sure that this Sojourn has that pocket, has that extra damage when they go for those charged up railgun shots. Now Lethal themselves is going to bring out the Sojourn, so we'll see if Admiral sticks to Lethal or moves around a bit more. I feel like Lethal, or Admiral, excuse me, overall has just been kind of flying around to whoever needs it. They're just sticking to one target and going for some crazy res, like you said, like flying out all the way away from the rest of the team just to make sure that they have more members alive.
Okay, NRG nearly finds Admiral there. Also nearly finds Skyle. There's so much pressure on him, though, and Maimon is finally going to suffocate NRG. Is the res going to come through? It doesn't look like it, because Redbirds have taken all of the ground. That's far too risky for Chaewon to try and go in on, so he's just going to play back with the rest of his team, find a new person to pocket, but Aerial punishes that one, and meanwhile, Dinks going for a little bit of a flank here. Kind of needs to go for the slam back on point to try and keep it in contention, but Aerial taking down Ricky. Now there's no supports alive, but no supports needed when everyone's dead. Energy and Akaza still running wild. Energy takes down Lethal and Moon Gorillas. It looks like they didn't even give up the tick completely. It looks like just shy of that first tick.
Well, that's painful, and I think that Moon Gorillas just saw the same mistake from Redbird Esports that they made themselves. They don't play the point, they play for picks, or they wait a little bit too long to rotate to the point. It does look like that first tick might finally come through momentarily. Maybe not. No, it doesn't look like it. So they follow up on the eliminations, and instead they give Moon Gorillas time to re-engage this. So no tick at all for Redbird Esports.
Skyle also made the swap over onto the Lucio there, I think thinking that it was still a winnable fight and wanting to go back in with Aerial. Yeah, now over onto the Baptiste. So this to me tells me they want to try and leverage this high ground more and set Lethal up a little bit more, potentially behind a Sigma shield, but you're going to have to play in a lot more of a death ball for that to be effective, and that's right where Dinks wants you.
Absolutely, they want you all put into one position so that Wrecking Ball can run into you, but there's no Wrecking Ball now in sight.
Yep, no Wrecking Ball at all. Lethal gonna go ahead and make us swiftly forget about the hero that once was Dinks, but NRG, who's been phenomenal with the Sojourn so far, gonna go ahead and pop the overclock, and nobody is showing their head save for Aerial. The respect finally coming out for Redbirds Esports. Lethal, though, with an overclock of his own, takes down Chaewon. Ricky is super, super low. The backline of Moon Gorillas may have just crumbled, but Aerial falls, gets rezzed up by Admiral. Ricky takes down Skyle, and Moon Gorillas are making it bloody, really making Redbirds work for it. And with the Transcendence, it might have just stalled out. The Gravitic Flux comes out. That's going to be enough to take down NRG with the help from Lethal. And now Redbirds have done just enough. There's still a little bit of contention on the point while Aerial's trying to play forward. Now that Akaza has been dispatched, there we go. Redbirds Esports finally cap point A.
On Ricky trying to go for the hero play with the Transcendence, trying to save Dinks, who was rolling around like roll just out of the way. Just like that pulse bomb only nearly missed the full damage amount. So, you know, it's really unfortunate because I feel like if Ricky had that Transcendence or saved it for this fight,
Ricky dies.
It could be very useful, but instead Ricky's just dead once again. So the Zenyatta not finding what they want. They do get resurrected, so at least they'll have that damage potential once again and a little bit more healing online, but I just noticed that Ricky in particular has been kind of focused out here in these last few engagements.
Yeah, but the res being gone, that's a 30-second window for Redbirds to really, really push their advantage, knowing they don't have to worry as much about Chaewon playing aggressively or going on a really, really aggressive angle. In fact, Moon Gorillas have to try and play safe and collect themselves. Akaza, though, wants to collect a couple body bags with a Pulse Bomb in hand. She's looking for a place where she can put it, but she's got to be watching her backline because Ricky almost fell. Recall from Maimon forced out. He's gone. See you later. And now, back in a nice little stalemate. There's the Pulse Bomb from Akaza, though. Doesn't quite hit. It was followed up with a slam there from Dinks, but it wasn't quite enough. Admiral gonna go ahead and pop the Valkyrie. Redbirds continuing to march forward. NRG and Lethal dueling it out once again, but the shot from Lethal was a little bit more on the money. Maimon gonna take down his counterpart in Akaza, and this cart is still going uncontested. Dinks rolls through. Being pressured out here. NRG with the headshot onto Maimon. The cart's getting awful close there. The sun's getting real low there, buddy. Aerial gonna go ahead and pop the Gravitic Flux. It whiffs. He's gonna pay for it. He's got no HP. Runs into the mines. Akaza gonna go ahead and clean it up. Moon Gorillas by the skin of their teeth holding on.
Yeah, I think the big thing there was that they committed Valkyrie as well as Overclock on the side of Redbirds, and they didn't really find that much. They did find one elimination at the tail end. The Moon Gorillas, they waited. They used their own Valkyrie, their own ultimates at the end, like the Overclock as well, and that was enough to just wait it out and stabilize and then win out that fight. Bad news, I mean, the good news is they avoided as well the Critic Flux, which I feel like Ariel's been really struggling with finding targets with this recently, but they still have the Amplification Matrix, and also that we haven't really seen thus far, but it could be a game changer. Ricky gonna be full the Transcendence. That's a great pulse one that takes a key ultimate offline for Moon Gorillas.
Yeah, but do Redbirds have anything that they can use to punish that? They don't have lethal, that's for sure. Despite the Amethyst coming out from Skyle, the healing can't come through, but with the Immortality Field invested, they can get the res off, but now there's no res for Maimon, who definitely wishes he had one available, as NRG once again takes him down with the check there, the nice rail shot. We're under a minute left, and Moon Gorillas are bullying Redbirds Esports back. Everything that Maimon fought for is now completely gone.
It is indeed running out of time. No ultimates at their disposal just yet. Losing lethal, which means they're going to be set back another 10 to 15 seconds. They lose their Tracer, it would be almost lights out. They cannot lose any more members, or this fight, they'll have to take, down a member, maybe down a few, depending on what happens. They really are waiting on lethal now, and they're also waiting on that overclock. That's going to be potentially their saving grace. The good news for them is that even if Akaza sticks this pulse bomb, because they have this Baptiste, they could just throw out an Immortality Field to counter it. So that pulse bomb is not a guaranteed elimination whatsoever.
Maimon also, I believe, had the recall forced out a little bit early, so he's going to have to play a little bit slow, but slow and steady is not going to win the race when you only got 10 seconds left, and you need lethal to come up huge with this overclock. He's looking for the angle, almost takes down NRG. NRG down to absolutely no HP, but is able to play it just a little bit safe. Lethal wants him so badly, but just can't get the angle. Might settle for Akaza if he can find her, but he just can't. The minefield from Dinks comes out, and NRG takes down Skyle, and this is looking like Moon Gorillas are primed to hold this one. Maimon, though, with a pulse bomb onto Ricky. He's not quite done. Admiral tries to go for a res. It was an admirable attempt, but it falls just a little bit short. Maimon, though, takes down Chaewon. Ariel, still alive, has to try and keep the cart in contention. It's a mountain to climb, and they just don't seem to have the climbing shoes. They've got Skyle on the Lucio, and Maimon just trying to find much of anything, but all he's gonna find is the spawn that Moon Gorillas send him right back to, and Moon Gorillas are gonna take their map pick of Paraiso.
Like we said before, this is the team that has made Redbird Esports bleed before, shows them that they're not immortal. It took a sub-map last time on Samoa, and here they are taking another one, but this time a full map, putting themselves on the scoreboard. It's an even series, and we're going to at least a map 4. No 3 Overwatch here today. It's looking like a barn burner.
Praise be, we've broken the 2 Overwatch, 3 Overwatch curse. We are now 1-1 here. And I mean, like you said, like we've been saying pretty much this whole time, yeah, Moon Gorillas has made this team bleed before. Skyle said in the interview, we're not going to underestimate them. Again, we made that mistake once. We will not do it again. They did it on Samoa. They may not have done it to the same degree on Paraiso, but we're still getting a rude awakening for them, right? Like, they're trying so hard towards the tail end there to find much of anything for Lethal to get that last pick off onto NRG. And we gotta talk about NRG, right? Who has been potentially like the biggest star player for this Moon Gorilla squad. 33 limbs, 20 final blows, all his own, versus 10-4 on Lethal's side. Definitely getting the better of that Sojourn head-to-head was NRG. And you also got to give it up for Chaewon for being in the pocket there. Moon Gorillas, they definitely have some star power working in their favor. They definitely have some potential. We might go the distance this time.
We might indeed, and like these are not names that you might necessarily see and say, like, I know these players. Like, I've seen them, like, in the pros, but these are all top 500, if not top 100 console players. So, like, they have earned their rank. They have earned how good they are, and they're showing it right here, right now. Like, just because they're on console does not mean they can't compete with the big boys. They can't compete with the pro players. They are going blow for blow and actually coming out on top of this one. Like you said, NRG, I think, really stepped up. We didn't see the Sojourn at all on the previous map. We saw them playing mostly like Cassidy and the Soldier for a little bit, but here on the Sojourn, it looks like they found a new lifeline. I'm really shocked, actually, that they're winning this one out, because they don't have a shield to hide behind. They have a Wrecking Ball who's running around. Man, on the other side, Ariel's playing the Sigma, so Lethal has the shield that they can kind of position themselves behind, but yet still, NRG's finding those off angles, finding that positioning, and getting that Mercy pocket with that extra damage boost that just is immediately clicking heads. It's every time you're seeing that they are winning the fight against the Tracer on the other side. Like, we talked about how good this Tracer is for Redbird Esports. They have been much quieter in this series than the previous one.
And like you said earlier, these two teams going blow for blow, so it would seem. We're going to cut to a quick break, let them both blow off some steam, and we'll be right back as this series continues. Don't go anywhere. We're getting a little spicy with this one. Hello, chat. I have brought another member of our analyst desk who has no actual interest in being here. Echo has shown up. I know it's not calling all heroes, but maybe we can get a couple meows in chat for her. That would be very, very sweet. She meowed to me that she was very, very interested in this game because it has been a banger so far, and it looks like it very well has the potential to go the distance. We're tied at 1-1, Jag, and we're going to New Junk City for Flashpoint.
We're the first and last time we're going to see Flashpoint today, guarantee. But this is really interesting. I always talk about this whenever I see New Junk City over Saravasa. I think New Junk City has some really weird high ground elements that you don't really see on Saravasa. So for me, this tells me that Like, even though they just lost the last map, Redbirds say, hey, like, we can control the high ground and win off of that alone. It makes me think they might still want to play the Sigma, play from that high ground, play at range, but I'd love to see them swap things up. This comp was made to counter Wrecking Ball. Did not really counter Wrecking Ball in the last map, unfortunately for them. They were getting rolled around quite a bit. They had to deal, I think, with the Wrecking Ball, and then also NRG playing Sojourn on those off angles, just clicking everyone's heads. So it might be time for Redbirds to go back to the drawing board and think of a different way to play this one out.
I'm glad you bring up some of the high ground elements of New Junk City, because I think that is like the main thing that does kind of separate these two maps. Like, we think New Junk City and Suravasa are so similar. I think Suravasa plays very, very well into both the brawl, but also into like a dive with a Wrecking Ball style where he can just kind of roll around, have his way with whoever, however he wants. New Junk City, though, especially on points like the Ducks or on, the Junkyard, there are these high grounds that are going to be very, very difficult to overtake, and you can still do so with a Wrecking Ball if that's the option that Moon Gorillas are going to choose to leverage here. But it does make it a little bit easier for teams like Redbirds to find a place where they can all just set up their camp, hold strong, pump out some damage from on high with that Sigma, and hopefully be a little bit more defensive. But that's going to rely on them capping the point outright in the first place.
It is indeed, and I'm getting hyped. I'm hearing the New Junk City music loading in. We were singing along to this earlier on, Jungle Queen Anthem, or to see which team can rock out here, or which team's going to be going down 1-2. Good news is that no team's going home, getting at least a little bit more Overwatch no matter what. Now we'll see what teams are at least going to be hovering from the get-go. It looks like Redbirds don't want to make a change, despite what happened last map. They did win the first map with this. Moon Gorilla is going to stick to what worked for them last time around, it looks like, and it's going to be really interesting to see how this works out. I always say that Flashpoint feels like, if you're looking at like the closest similarity, it feels a lot like Control in the way that you kind of just run at each other the entire time, but then there's some interesting rotation stuff that happens between rounds or between points. At the very beginning, it's just going to be both teams straight up brawling it out. So we'll see if Moon Gorillas this time around can win it out, because they couldn't do that on Control. They were not able to win those initial fights on Samoa like any of the times that they fought. All 3 points they lost that first fight.
And you can see Dinks trying to go for a wide angle, though. Maimon is going to meet him there, and Akaza's going to be not too far behind, so that might be one clash that we're going to be having to look at over there. It might make it a little bit difficult for Maimon to win that duel, but that does take a lot of resources away from the front line fight, which is where Redbirds Esports, for the most part, want to try and take this. They're actually just looking to set Lethal up with a nice angle where he can duel out with NRG. And it doesn't look like either one of them really wants to show too much face right now. But while Redbirds are hiding their face, burying it in the sand currently, Moon Gorillas almost completely took the point. Ariel has to drop down to try and keep it in contention. And now there's no shield to save Lethal from NRG. Goes a little bit aggressive, but takes some damage. Doesn't want to stick around. Both these teams just afraid to be the first one to fall. But Skyle is going to have to be the one to face his fears, face his mortality, courtesy of NRG. Yet again, Moon Gorillas look to be winning this fight, again courtesy of a pickoff from NRG.
Dinks barely survives. It rolls right out by the skin of their teeth, but all the while they're being a nuisance, you can see what NRG is doing. I mean, we've got the player POV. They are just getting a few dinks here and there, a few shots, but mostly what they're doing is they are charging up that railgun for that full charged fire. And I think this makes sense. They're going to run, I think they want to run straight actually at NRG, and then they can just eat up all that damage with the defense matrix. We'll see if that's what they actually end up doing, but
I believe it was Hawk who was saying that people are sleeping on D.Va right now, and maybe Ariel is here to try and wake some people up, but right now, Maimon, you gotta wake up and you gotta try and win this duel with Akaza. It's so difficult when Akaza has the Mercy there to support her, and with that help is gonna take down Maimon, but she's gonna pay for it actually. Ariel just chases Akaza down, and now we're down a Tracer on either side. Admiral gets the res, Chaewon mirrors it as well, so we're back at full strength on either side, but Redbirds have flipped the point. NRG and Maimon again going blow for blow, taking down the hit scans on either side. Lethal and NRG now off the field, courtesy of a pulse bomb from Maimon. Ricky gonna go ahead and pop that Transcendence, so Moon Gorillas can sit real pretty here, but they don't have control of the point. So Skyle can just go in with a second Transcendence, punish Ricky for it. There's a lot of pressure. He's gonna fall. There's a stick though onto Admiral. Nobody really seems to be getting the better of this one, but the longer this fight goes on, the more it's going to favor Redbirds.
Yeah, the fact that they have the point means they're getting point percentage the entire time. They've actually almost equaled it, but it is going to be a flip back at the last moment. Lethal, in the meantime, swapped onto the Sombra. This point might get flipped back immediately, It's actually really good for Moongorillas that they were able to get like a touch at the last second. And now they're going to be using the overclock. They want to win this out right here. They do not want to wait for a possible full region test for Redbirds.
And Aerial has to try and duck over out here into this little alcove just to try and avoid any sort of damage coming out, negate all of that overclock damage, and it did do a lot of damage. Gonna force the self-destruct out, but Aerial's not able to get the remech. Ricky is gonna fall though, but Maimon goes too deep to try and make it happen, pays for it. Redbirds find the flip, but Moongorillas find the bodies.
And they're going to find that first flashpoint capture in just a moment. There it is. The D.Va not working out the way they have wanted it to so far. At least looking a bit better in those fights, but not being able to steal away that first point. Now we're moving on to the second one. Redbird, I gotta wonder, like, what other changes can they make? I think the Cassie, maybe it's time to let that go. I feel like Lethal has still been struggling a bit, like has been found out a bit more with this more divey comp from Moongorillas. There's got to be something that they change up here because it's just not working out. This will be the high ground that we talked about before, but considering that they don't even have a Sigma, the high ground isn't really as beneficial for them.
And it's really difficult to go against a Mercy Pocketed Sojourn, right? Because there's all that sustained damage that's going to be coming through, and you also have the threat of the rail shots. And meanwhile, you don't have the Sigma shield anymore. Like you said, we're now on the D.Va, so we're in a dive composition, so Lethal has to have a lot more pressure on him. And right now, he's got a pulse bomb on him. There's a nice defense matrix, though, that comes out from Aerial to allow that res, because Admiral damn near paid for trying to even go for that one, courtesy of Akaza. But unfortunately, all her hard work has been completely undone, courtesy of a nice little res. There's Lethal finally waking up a little bit, taking down NRG, but that's also going to get rezzed, as does NRG. And Ricky taking down Aerial. It's looking like Moongorillas are taking this one again.
Aza going toe-to-toe with Maimon and winning out is just so impressive. Like, she is definitely a player to keep your eyes on, not only throughout this series, but throughout the rest of this tournament. And Moongorillas, again, being able to take those wins. I said before, I don't think on Control they won a single first fight. Well, they've won both of them now. They've gotten that first cap both times, and they are getting up more and more percentage. The flashpoint ticks away so quickly that Redbirds, they might get 1-2 fights if they're lucky out of this second point, and they might be facing not only no 2-hole on this map, but eventually maybe a 1-2-hole on this series. Things are not taking a good turn for them.
And we're talking a lot about NRG versus Lethal. I do want to talk about Akaza versus Maimon, because Maimon is going to be constantly looking for pulse bombs onto the back line. Lethal, though, finds a pulse bomb in his face, survives it, but isn't going to survive NRG. Despite getting that nade onto him, Akaza coming through with the cleanup is winning it outright, takes down Maimon. Skyle forced to use the Transcendence, but I feel like there's just too many casualties coming out. And again, as soon as that Transcendence is gone, all the pressure gonna come through. A defense matrix just to try and keep Skyle up for now, for the moment. But it's a token gesture. Yeah, they need to touch the point. Aerial loses Skyle, has to try and go in just a touch to keep it in contention. But now with the stick, Aerial gonna lose a lot of HP, has to try and go aggressive, but you can't really do that when you don't have a mech. There's the self-destruct, force out, is gonna be able to get the remech, but Dinks takes down Admiral. There's just no staying power, and there's just no time for Redbirds to find it. Moongorillas coming up with this one handily. A res there onto Ricky, the only blood Redbirds Esports have been able to find this whole fight, and it's all for naught as Moongorillas go up 2-0 on Flashpoint.
Said they had to change over from the Cassidy. It looks like they finally will do that, but is it too little too late? They lose Skyle. I mean, it looks like they're just staggering themselves a little bit at this point. This next point is going to unlock. They might not even have the full team there. The Tracer does have the blinks to get in pretty quickly, but the Zenyatta specifically going to have a long ways to go. Not a very fast character with their base movement speed. So Redbirds, they're potentially looking at a 3-0 loss here on New Junk City, which was, again, their map pick, but they are not making it work whatsoever.
Back over onto the Sigma, so they have to try and get first point or first capture here if they want to try and, you know, leverage this comp efficiently. Lethal with a nice rail shot there onto NRG. It's not enough to find blood, and NRG definitely wants some blood and is going to settle for Aerials right there with a nice little rail shot. The res comes through, but while everyone's trying to go for that res, Redbirds Esports are bullied back, and Moongorillas get the first capture. Aerial gonna go ahead and poke his head out there. There's a pulse bomb from Akaza, goes a little bit wide there, but NRG taking down Maimon. NRG is just not letting the DPS from Redbirds breathe right now.
I think there's just a very big difference in the playstyle of Mercy's. Admiral, again, like we talked about this before on Paraiso, flying around a lot more, trying to help everyone at once, but Shaywada, for the most part, is just sticking with this Sojourn. So when they get those overclock headshots 100%, they are just going to take down whoever they can except for the tank.
All right, there's a nice rail shot off the overclock from Lethal onto Akaza. Finally, that pesky Tracer has been dealt with, but there's still another threat lurking, and it wasn't even the other DPS. It was Ricky who takes down Admiral, is going to pop the Transcendence, and that's actually a huge play. Despite the Trans getting forced out there, that's going to open the door for Dinks to go in with that minefield. Ricky is gonna fall. Lethal is finally waking up there, takes down the entire back line of Moon Gorillas, is gonna pay for it, but I think the damage has been done. Redbird's Esports finally in control.
Yeah, I thought they might play for the point on the side of Moon Gorillas, just try to get more capture progress after the minefield went down. Redbird Esports went fully into this room again, going for the elimination instead of the objectives, but Moon Gorillas followed them, so maybe a bit of a misplay there by Moon Gorillas where they could have won some point progress even if they lost the overall fight. So many ultimates used on both sides. And it's down to one fight territory here on this third point. Ariel has to hit a Gravitic Flux. They have been struggling with them, especially on Paraiso. We saw at least 2 that were missed. So they think they've got to catch out. It doesn't necessarily have to be the full team. They've been constantly going for NRG. There might be another target you want to find here because NRG has that power slide, might be able just to run away.
What was that shot, NRG? You're threading the needle there. Almost takes down Admiral. Not quite enough damage to do Admiral in for good there. So Redbird still holding strong. Actually putting a lot of pressure there onto Dinks. There's that Gravitic Flux. Ariel is looking for that Wrecking Ball and is not gonna find it. Goes just a little bit wide. Yet again, it was unfortunate. Trying to lay the trap and spring it at the right time, but got baited himself there. But NRG gonna go ahead and do what he's been doing all game long. Finds another rail shot onto Lethal. I don't even know if that's resable with the Valkyrie from Admiral. It's mirrored by Che-Wan, keeping everybody from Moon Gorillas alive. And Moon Gorillas, they flip the point. Redbirds once again bullied back.
Yeah, they cannot fall here. They have to stabilize and stay alive while they wait for their Sojourn to get back into the fray. They got to be careful, though. Kazu is going around the back. Looks like she won't be able to find much of anything just yet. And we're resetting here for this final fight, what could be the final fight here. And they're going to get the Tracer on the side of Redbird Esports.
They take down Lethal as well, and Admiral, now which one do you res? You're gonna have to want to prioritize Lethal there. Is gonna go for the res onto Lethal there. While that was all happening, Skyle, yeah, popped the Transcendence, but got booped right down into the hole. So now no healing for Ariel when he desperately needed it. Now Lethal has to come up absolutely huge with this overclock, but it's not enough. The point's covered in mines, and with no way to even touch the point, it doesn't matter how many you kill. It's not going to be enough to stop Moon Gorillas, who take New Junk City decisively.
Not only have they evened the score, they have now taken the lead against Redbird Esports. Not something that I thought I'd be saying in this series, but here we are now on series point going into map 4. And the first one, you know, Samoa had some back and forth. Paraiso also had some good back and forth. It wasn't like super one-sided, but here, this is a 3-0. And sure, there was some point percentage for Redbirds here and there, but overall, it just seems like Moon Gorillas have found the number of Redbird Esports. They have called it, and even if they're going to voicemail, they are in their heads right now because they are absolutely running circles around them.
And I was trying to, say it a little bit earlier, but the fight got really scrappy. I want to give a huge shout out to Akaza because I think a big part of the reason that Redbirds made it look so easy against Pip earlier today was Maimon just being completely uncontested on that Tracer, but Akaza is constantly there to check Maimon. Maimon can't put as much backline pressure as he really, really wants to, and that means Ricky is able to stay alive a lot more often than he quite frankly should. And meanwhile, in the front line, you just have NRG diffing Lethal, which is not something that I feel like we should be saying, but we are. 24 and 12, all right, 12 final blows, nearly doubling what Lethal was putting out on the other side.
I gotta feel for Lethal too, because the damage output is really good. Once again, it's actually the highest in the lobby, but the overall eliminations final blows are a lot lower. But I think you gotta look at Akaza versus Maimon and the difference here on the Tracer right now. Maimon, again, was an absolute monster, an absolute mad lad in that last series, but here, they're putting in some damage, but just not finding enough eliminations. It's 8-24. Akaza's getting 3 times what Maimon got in this last map, and the final scoreline definitely shows it as well, getting a 3-0 overall on that map.
And maybe that is the key to victory for Moon Gorillas. Maybe it is you just keep Maimon in check, and suddenly Lethal's not going to have the same shots, the same angles that he typically would have. Maybe your back isn't going to be turned to him as often as he would definitely like it to be. And meanwhile, Ariel is playing kind of tank roulette right now. He can't really sit on any comfortable hero right now. The Sigma is not working out. You sent a couple times, he's been struggling to find pay dirt with some of these gravitic fluxes, and we did see that in real time where he was going for it, really, really wanted to catch Dinks rolling right into it, but Dinks just pops a quick little Yui. The Gravitic Flux just goes right down the drain, and suddenly it's just like, okay, well, now we don't have any real ults. We don't really have any way to stop this Wrecking Ball. We don't really have any way to stop Akaza. We just don't have anything, really. We've got nothing. The D.Va, I think, was an okay look, but at that point, like, Redbird's Esports, like, they're not playing their game. They've been forced off of their game by Moon Gorillas. And again, this is what happens when you underestimate them. A mistake that Skyle promised us he would not make. And yet here we sit, 2-1. Moon Gorillas with the lead on match point over Redbird's Esports. It's Redbird's map pick. Time to get a little bit more respect.
In fairness, it wasn't Skyle necessarily that was, doing the funny, was overextending. It was more so his teammates. So maybe he's at least keeping his promise for that. But so far the team, yeah, they are not looking in the best position right now. I think one thing to discuss is, do you swap tanks? They do have 3 tanks on their roster in total. I think Ariel has been played really good so far, but the Sigma is just not working out. The D.Va swap wasn't necessarily it either. They have Kuffa, they have Moving Fish, both very capable tanks on this roster that they could potentially try to sub in to try to get something new going. Because right now, like, momentum has completely left their side. I think they got to find a way to stop the bleeding ASAP, and maybe one of those subs could be the answer. Maybe if they want to play something different. If they want to play the Wrecking Ball, maybe there's someone on their roster who feels more comfortable playing it. Maybe Ariel themselves can try playing it and try to mirror their opponent. Because we did see that Moon Gorillas at one point was mirroring Redbird. Redbird did win that one out, but it was still pretty close. Redbird might have to flip the script or take a script or take a page out of Moon Gorilla's script and try that themselves and go for a mirror.
I gotta be honest, you bring up some of the potential tank swaps, and you brought up Kuffa, and I'm starting to think, like, Winston, I don't think is as bad as people are saying he actually is right now, and that might be an effective counter to what Moon Gorillas are playing, but at the same time, maybe not, because Moon Gorillas are playing that very, very self-sufficient style. The only hero on their roster, or that on their comp right now that really needs any sort of protecting is the Sojourn, and you've got the Mercy Pocket, at the hip at all times, so you're not really worried about that. Like, what? So maybe you switch to like a dive composition, but who do you dive? Do you try and dive Ricky? Because that's like risky. That's risky. Going up against a Discord, and the peel is definitely going to be there. That's a little bit rough. The D.Va didn't work out, so I really don't know. I don't know what the solution is. I'm a doctor. I'm not a surgeon. I can diagnose a problem, but when it comes to actually curing it, you're on your own, buddy. Your insurance doesn't cover that one, all right? I can definitely diagnose that this composition for Redbird's Esports isn't cutting it right now. They're being forced off their game. They're completely out of whack. As for what they do about it, I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see what their map pick is. I think you bring up a great point, though, is like, even when you want to dive the Zenyatta, which is like the most diveable target really on the field, even with the kick, even with his buffs to health and shield, the big thing is everyone's playing Protect the President, and the President is always going to be Zenyatta, so everyone is going to just immediately peel back to try to protect that Zenyatta and make sure that they live. The Mercy healing is going to go on them. Usually the tank will try to protect them. The DPS might shift, so they're, doing damage to the people attacking them. So it's like, who's even diveable in this comp? And I think the advantage of the Sigma is, like, usually you can kind of play more anti-dive. Like, that's the same thing with the Cassidy. Like, they have tools, abilities that mitigate the accretion that should stop that dive from being as effective. But so far, no dice. And it looks like we're going to be going to Colosseo, which could be our final map of this series.
Colosseo is a very, very interesting one indeed. I think this is one where okay, to me this kind of feels like Redbirds might be trying to die on the hill that they have made for themselves with this Sigma composition, because I feel like if I'm getting in their heads right now, all right, who's been playing really, really strong for their team? Lethal. You're putting a lot of stock into Lethal. He's the one who's getting all of the pocket. He's the one that you're relying on. How do you leverage Lethal on the Cassidy or on the Sojourn? Well, you try and play for the high grounds on either side or for that really long corridor. And the best way to enable Lethal, I think, is going to be that Sigma coming out from Ariel. And it hasn't really worked yet. If that's what they want to go for, it's got to work now. Otherwise, I'm hoping that there is a plan B. I hope that there is a backup plan for this, because I don't know about the Sigma anymore, boys. I think it might be time to go back to the drawing board, maybe cross out D.Va as well, because that wasn't exactly what we thought it would be. Try and find something new.
We'll see if it is something new, but it does not look like it from at least what we're seeing the hovers be for the time being, but haven't left spawn just yet, so there could be some last-second changes. We saw on Perry, so we thought Ariel might be playing the Doomfist, and that was just such a bait, so very good. Potentially be at the last second change once more, but Moon Gorillas, I'm sure they're going to stick to this as it's been working out well. The one change was going to be the Ashe, but nope, going to be going right back to the Sojourn as expected. I think NRG might actually struggle a bit to find off angles, at least on this initial fight, where the push spot is from the get-go, but like once the bot starts pushing onto like either spawn side of the map, that's where that high ground really opens up, and I think that's really where NRG's gonna flourish.
You can even see to kick it off with the overhead view there, Dinks and Akaza once again going off on a very wide flank, and you can see that Redbirds, despite having an advantage over the bot, can't really leverage that. They don't want to walk forward because they have to be checking their backline. Is now 3 different angles, and NRG potentially the most threatening one. Aerial gonna go ahead and get some feet on the bot there, get a little bit of congestion, but it is a little bit dicey. There is some presence from Moon Gorillas. The bot gonna start pushing forward, but it is kind of a token bit of capture percentage so far for Redbirds Esports, and it's all they're gonna get as Aerial is already forced back, takes a lot of damage, and Dinks wants to go in on that one with a big slam. Aerial gonna fall courtesy of a Discord and a little bit of follow-up from Akaza, but Skyle makes Akaza pay for that one, is gonna pay for that one with his own life, and that's not resable. You don't got Admiral, you don't got a backline. Moon Gorillas, they got the bot now.
Yeah, you've got 0 heals right now, so you're just going to be trying to hold on as much as you can, maybe stop this push bot from actually getting any progress, but as you do that, Lethal ends up falling. This is going to be a full reset, and it's going to be the lead given over to Moon Gorillas. Now have double the movement. You can see Moon Gorillas are just kind of laying in wait, playing very patiently, waiting for the position of Redbirds Esports to either not be favorable or to force them out themselves, and then they find that quick pick, and they go from there. This has been very calculated and very coordinated, very different from what we saw originally from Samoa, but once the gears started turning for Moon Gorillas, they have just been in the driver's seat.
Aerial gets booped off of the high ground, though. He is going to die there. There's so much support coming out. He's got the Harmony Orb and the Mercy Pocket. Dinks does fall. The res is going to come out for that one. Aerial holding strong, but he is not where he wants to be at all right now. The bot is going to continue to march forward unless Aerial has anything to say about it. Now has to play on the bot just to try and stop any sort of capture progress, but you can't stop Akaza from winning these duels with Maimon. And there we go, we hit a Gravitic Flux, and all it took was Dinks being completely knocked out. Lethal with a dink of his own onto Akaza, and now Redbirds have leveraged the high ground, leveraged their positioning to get themselves back in control.
It turns out all you gotta do to hit Gravitic Flux is to make sure they are incapacitated. There's no way to get out of it then. But it's huge because you catch out Dinks out of position. They are completely like, there's no way they can get out of that, and it's finally a fight win. Problem for the problem for Redbirds is that Moon Gorillas have everything except Valkyrie ready to go. There's gonna be so many ultimates to deal with here. They might just get out-ulted, powered, honestly, and that's just gonna be the end of that. The push bot gets stopped momentarily, but now it's gonna be NRG trying to engage with this overclock.
Everyone gonna have to try and play behind Aerial's shield, but that shield shatters, and so too does the defense for Redbirds, though their offense still looking pretty good as Lethal takes down Dinks. That's gonna slow Moon Gorilla's roll, pun definitely intended, but they still have the tools to try and keep this one scrappy, keep themselves in the lead, but it looks like they're gonna go ahead and tuck those tools back in their toolbox. Lethal pops the overclock, but no one from Moon Gorillas looking to square up at high noon here.
It's a zoning ultimate. That's all they're playing for right now. They're just trying to get everyone out of sight so they can get that capture, but they don't get the lead just yet. Instead, it's Mines being forced to use or traded for Transcendence, and everyone is still alive, a 5v5 for the time being.
You definitely would have liked to have that Transcendence for a little bit more than being a Minesweeper. You definitely would have liked to have it to try and keep Aerial alive through that Pulse Bomb, but you just couldn't. Aerial is going to fall, and with no tank there, it's going to be a shooting gallery for NRG. What do you know? Akaza continuing to go forward, takes down Skyle. The staggers continue, and Moon Gorilla's back in control, still in the lead.
They were 2 meters away from taking the lead, and that would have completely changed how they played this. They could have just backed off after, played more defensively, tried to keep that lead in check. But instead now, they're getting staggered, they're getting, I wouldn't say spawn camp, but they're getting pushed back into their own spawn. And this might actually be the forward capture now for Moon Gorillas if they keep pushing this bot.
That was beautiful for Dinks. Knocks Lethal off the high ground, but then uses the slam to bring him back up. Says, no, I'm not done with you. Get back up here. And Akaza still not done with Skyle because the res from Admiral was going out onto Lethal. So now you don't have the Zenyatta. That's the weak point that everyone keeps trying to leverage. And it's once again put the pressure onto Redbirds. Too much pressure for Aerial to hit that Gravitic Flux. It goes wide yet again. Speaking of going wide, NRG with a wide angle punishing Lethal yet again. And Moon Gorillas looking to capture the point here. They show no signs of slowing down. Aerial See ya, son. Back to spawn.
Energy on a 10-player kill streak in the... It just keeps coming for them. It just keeps coming for Redbird, and they can't do anything. This brawl, which really isn't a brawl, it's more of a dive, but it feels like a brawl of how quickly they're being run over. That post bomb not gonna hit, and I think you can see a little bit of desperation start to show from Redbird. They're trying to go for these really crazy plays. They're trying to play very aggressively, but they are missing. They've gone now back to the D.Va, and the forward spawn already been unlocked for Moongirl, so even if they lose this fight, they'll be able to get back into the swing of things really quickly.
But they have no interest in losing this fight. Energy pops the overclock, and Dinks with the minefield. Moon Gorillas know they can invest in this. The more they invest now, the less they're gonna have to do later, and the more insurmountable the mountain that Redbirds Esports have to climb becomes as this bot continues to push on forward.
This could be a full capture. We could see them end the series by capturing the map. Not something you see very often on Control, but Lethal doing what they can. Gonna pop that overclock, but as a counter, it's gonna be Ricky with the Transcendence.
Yep, and that's gonna mean that Lethal's overclock is looking quite cold, as a matter of fact, and now he's on the low ground, and Energy just finds him there, picks him off for free, despite the Transcendence coming out from Skyle, and it's also not there to save Admiral, who gets taken down by Dinks, and this is looking so disastrous for Redbirds. That said, they're getting a couple of kills there. Maimon finally coming alive, taking down Chaewon. Aerial forced to use that self-destruct, and NRG can't duck his head low enough to survive it. And Redbirds Esports, they can finally surface, gasp for a little bit of air, but how long before Moon Gorillas suffocate them again?
Ariel just going for a remake and gets a free kill off of it. I think we've all had that experience where you think you're out of the LOS of the D.Va self-destruct and you still end up falling. Not a great feeling, but it's great for Redbird Esports. They finally get a little bit of breathing room. Like you said, they might actually cancel out that forward spawn just momentarily. There it is. And now with Lethal onto the Sombra, we saw it briefly. Didn't work out super great, but I think if they try to focus on maybe catching out the supports, it could work out really well. And there's Ricky already falling.
Exactly, that's what Maimon needs to do. Needs to try and win these duels with Ricky. Does just that. Now Chaewon, what do? You want to try and go for the res, but the rest of your team has to peel back to try and facilitate that. And there's so much pressure coming out that Chaewon just can't commit to it. Moon Gorillas, they have to live to fight another day.
And Ricky's now swapped onto the Kiriko, so has now that Suzu that could cleanse anyone who's hacked. A really great swap, as well as a teleport to potentially get out of harm's way. So no Zen to deal with. How will Redbird Esports play this? They're kind of stuck in a small room, and their Tracer and Wrecking Ball is on them, but in the meantime, they're winning the fights!
Yeah, it's Maimon and Ariel going super deep with the aid of Lethal while everybody was trying to take down Skyle and Admiral in that little room, and they couldn't get it done. Redbirds Esports, they clap back hard, and this might be enough to get them the checkpoint. They ain't out of this one yet.
Yes, it should get them the checkpoint. There's still so much room to make up. So many meters they'll still have to go after they get that checkpoint over like almost double.
They don't even get the checkpoint.
Tie it
the
up.
contest comes through.
They haven't gotten it just yet. Yeah, they're still contesting this one out, so it's not even guaranteed quite yet from Moon Gorillas. They want to fight this one right here, right now.
Dink's going through with a couple of contestants. In fact, the bot actually turned around. That's going to be a little bit of a thorn in the side of Redbirds Esports, but they're trying to put the thorns in every side of Moon Gorillas. They take down Dinks, but NRG with the overclock doesn't let Admiral get the res there onto Skyle. That's so aggressive, but it pays off in spades. And now, I mean, Moon Gorillas, they're going to pop the Valkyrie. That might be a little bit of an overcommitment, but who cares? You win the fight, you deny the checkpoint, whatever. You know, you can throw a Valkyrie into that fire.
And not only do you deny all of that utility,
Mommy's here.
You are now already, like, you're only... Yeah, you swap on to Jungler Queen, but you only have to kill off a minute. You could win, like, one fight, and the bot doesn't even have to get back to where you, like, ended up. You have so much room that you can kind of play advantageously here on, like, the corner for natural cover, just like they are, instead of trying to play aggressively. They have, I mean, at this point, Redbirds has to run into them. They don't have to, like, run into Redbirds. Moon Gorillas can just chill here.
Ariel didn't have breakfast today, so he's going to scarf down a pulse bomb from Akaza yet again. That's the second E for Ariel, looking pretty solid on this D.Va, but the mecha armor looking anything but solid right now, and a Kitsune Rush going to put a lot more pressure out. Transcendence from Skyle is forced out, and there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of blood coming as a result of the Kitsune Rush. In fact, Moon Gorillas have to play on the back foot a little bit here, trying to catch out Lethal, but Lethal says, nah, I gotcha. That's 4 kills for Redbirds, and they are marching the spot right back the other way, but they are gonna have to contend with a short little butt scratch and only 10 seconds left for them to try and catch up.
There's definitely going to be a contest here from Grills. They could try to run and stop that Buttscratch from coming through, but I mean, what are they going to even use here? They don't have any ultimates just yet, but they're so close to that Rampage. And the big thing about the Rampage, there's nothing that Redbirds could potentially do to counter this. If it hits members, they're all going to be antied. They're not going to be able to be healed up. There's nothing, there's no Suza that can cleanse them. There's no sound barrier that can shield them. This is looking pretty deadly.
It hits 5. The Rampage is absolutely massive. Ariel gonna go ahead and pop that self-destruct just to try and live to tell the tale, but Lethal is gonna do no such thing. The res comes through to Admiral, from Admiral to try and get Lethal back into it, but NRG is just going absolutely crazy right now off the back of that Rampage. Like you said, NRG with a third, and Moon Gorillas are going to make the would-be kings bleed, and in fact take their throne and say, we'll see you for the rematch in Grand Finals if you're up to it.
This has been a day of revenge. We saw this in Valkyrie with Red Rockets. They were the team that won that first series in the Swiss stage, but Bobinky, they won that one out. It was a 2-0, and here Moon Gorillas, the only team to take a map off of Redbirds earlier on during the Swiss stage. This time they take the series 3-1. The teams that lost, they've learned from their mistakes. They might be the underdogs originally, but now they are the victors. And this team, like you said, moving on to the Grand Finals. And there's still a whole lot of cash on the line. They're guaranteed at least part of that $2,100 prize pool now.
Yeah, and I think the big thing is that they're also guaranteed to have their names in a little bit more people's mouths right now, because we talked about how much of an unknown quantity they were, again, coming mostly from the console side of things, but we've seen, you know, a couple times throughout history, some really, really strong console teams that have been able to take it to contenders tier teams. I'm thinking of like Red Team from back in the day. I mean, this does kind of give you echoes of that, but to a whole new degree. Look at NRG with some of these absolutely insane plays, insane stats. I mean, you know, 20 limbs and 9 final blows on that last map, the most on his team. That feels like even kind of low compared to what he was doing throughout the rest of the series, but it's still enough and coming through at the right times to just give Moon Gorillas an edge that you wouldn't have given them looking at this roster. You know, looking at these rosters head to head at the start of today, and even after looking at Samoa, Moon Gorillas really making Redbirds Esports live to regret the day they thought they could spawn camp them on Volcano.
The one who lasts the loudest, and there you see that they get the last laugh indeed. I mean, I think when you look at like the DPS in this lobby, NRG was not the one you'd be thinking of to be the MVP, but I gotta say, they had one hell of a performance. Again, Samoa wasn't the best start, but once they got onto the Sojourn, there was no looking back. They absolutely ran away with that game. They were absolutely winning the DPS tools against Lethal, and this, what a performance. I think this is a player to look out for, not only in the rest of this tournament, but with the whole new infrastructure and kind of landscape of Overwatch Champion Series. We never know where this player or this team could end up going forward, so just what a great showing. And like you said, this could be a revenge matchup for Redbirds eventually in that Grand Finals if they get there. And you got to think they are super motivated to get there now after that loss that they just suffered.
It's also going to be kind of demotivating for some of those other teams that are waiting in the lower brackets, and they were like, wait, what?
Oh no, Redbirds.
No, we gotta fight. We gotta face Redbirds now? What? Like, you're looking at teams like Half-Life or Pirates in Pajamas, especially after the complete backhanding that Redbirds Esports gave Pip earlier today. Them looking and being like, oh, hell no. We got to go through Redbirds again to try and get to Grand Finals. Like, I thought it would be us versus Redbirds in Grand Finals. No, we don't even get to go that far. Redbirds, I mean, that is a landmine to be sent down to the lower bracket. An upset, I think, you know, for a lot of people coming into this. But, you know, for Moon Gorillas, anything but upset. They are looking pretty strong right now. Got to be full of themselves. And, you know, we're going to hear from one of them, see how they feel coming out of today. They got to be feeling pretty good. We'll take a quick break, get that interview all set up for you, chat. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back. Welcome back, everybody. We're coming off the heels of a match that I don't think a lot of people would have predicted went the way that it did. You know, Moon Gorilla's coming out over Redbird Esports 3-1. Like I said, not a lot of people would have seen this outcome coming, but I do know of at least one person that almost certainly did, and that's Chaewon from Moon Gorillas. Hello, how are you doing today?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing absolutely wonderful. Thank you for thank you for asking. Also, thank you for the game we got to see. It was a great one, and I want to go ahead and open up with a bit of an interesting question. We interviewed Skyle from Redbirds earlier today, and he said that last time you two faced in Swiss, that they underestimated you guys, and they will not make that mistake again. Do you feel like Redbirds underestimated the Moon Gorillas once again?
I don't know if they technically underestimated us, but I do think that we definitely could have come out on top in the first game if we kind of were more coordinated. And I feel like we were more coordinated these past games than we were the last time.
It showed. I feel like after Samoa, you guys kind of got some pep in your step, were able to really take the series into your own hands. So I'm curious, was there any core adjustments you guys made after Samoa that made you feel like this is like a better situation? I saw that you guys played a lot of Sojourn. Was that something that was calculated, or just something that you wanted to try out and see if it worked?
Well, he normally plays Sojourn, but I was like, oh, like, you should play Sojourn. And then, everyone kind of agreed, and then it kind of went from there. And we also swapped Daints and Netrise because Daints is a ball player, but he was playing support for us. And I feel like ball into their comp was a lot more effective than Doomfist, obviously. Or I mean any tanks technically that he really could have played. I feel like the ball swap was a really good swap for us.
I have to agree. Yeah, I mean, y'all won the series, so it was 3-0 after that, too. After you made those swaps, you guys won every single map after. I got a question for you. You are the only PC player on a team full of console players. So I gotta ask, does it feel different than playing with other PC players? Is there any differences you see between the two, or is it pretty similar?
Well, I'm actually originally from console. I kind of just started playing PC more recently, kind of around late June. And so it kind of it's nice to be able to still have those teammates that from obviously when I used to play, because the console community is pretty small. Everyone knows each other. And on PC, it's no one really knows as much as you kind of queue into a game and you don't know the people that you're against. But when you're on console, you kind of know everyone. And so it's a little different in that aspect. And I mean, the playstyle, it's a lot harder to play Mercy on console than it is on PC because of Zimmers. You guys probably know what Zimmers are. So that's just my take on that.
Hey, well, I mean, you definitely make it look easy. You had some incredible stats, some incredible reses, and even just, being there for NRG when he needed you. It looks like you guys were a collective unit today. It definitely felt like you mentioned playing with players that you've played before. So I like to see that kind of solidarity, that coming together as a unit. And you as a unit have now found yourself in the grand finals, potentially awaiting Redbirds again. How does it feel like, as a console team, to take it to one of these storied, contenders tier, collegiate powerhouse teams that we've seen over and over again?
I think it's pretty cool because a lot of the console, a lot of the PC community, they always underestimate the console players, and they never really see them as equal, if that really made sense. But they kind of look down on console players, and I feel like it's kind of cool to be able to even have the opportunity to play in the tournament at the highest division. So I think that's pretty cool.
I'm inclined to agree, and you mentioned how the console community has been kind of very small. Everyone knows each other, but every now and then throughout history of Overwatch, we've seen one or two console teams kind of come out of nowhere and surprise a lot of people, and I think you've definitely put yourself in the history books as one of those teams. So I want to congratulate you on that, and congratulate you on your victory, making it to grand finals, and I want to thank you for coming and saying hi to us today.
Of course. Thank you, guys.
Is there, before we send you on your way, is there anything else you want to say? Any shout outs to, the chat, to your teammates, to the enemy team? If you want to get a little spicy with it, it's up to you. The floor is yours.
I'm not gonna drag anything on but I will say that I am very proud of my team as a whole, and that we have made a lot of progress, especially in this tournament, as from especially when we lost originally to Redbirds to where we are now.
Well, Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure to get to talk with you, and I do hope to get to see you play just as hard and just as well tomorrow. We will see you then. Thank you once again for joining us for our final game of the day. Chat, it's been a bit of a day. It's been a bit of a day. A little bit of 2 Overwatch with a little bit of 3-1 Overwatch sprinkled in towards the latter end. I still gotta call it as an upset. Like, honestly, like I was saying, Redbirds look like the favorites. Having seen them scrim, they looked scary, like potentially in, I don't want to say their final form as an organization, because there's a lot to the Redbirds legacy, but definitely like a really, really high tier form of this team. And Moon Gorillas just beat them.
Yeah, we can see the full bracket to see exactly how today unfolded. This was the first day of the playoff bracket. We finished up the Swiss stage last week, and now there were a lot of forfeits, which I think definitely affected kind of how things went. I think there were some teams that were, eliminated sooner than I thought or expected. It's good to see the Timeless Ethereal, after forfeiting their first match, was able to play out the rest, or at least play one more match. So good to see them still in the tournament. I think them versus Pirates of Pajamas tomorrow is going to be very spicy, because then the winner has to play Redbirds, which, like, again, no one's super excited about that. But it's just crazy that Moon Gorillas is here. It's 100% an upset in my book. I didn't expect it. I think most people that in chat, if they said they predicted this, are probably lying. I think there is like the CLG community, the console like league gaming. I know they came out in some forces today supporting some of their players. I think a lot of these players were originally in CGL. Excuse me. So it's really interesting to see like what Jaewon said, like that they don't think that console gets enough respect, and I think this proves that if you're a PC player, you're not necessarily better than a console player, because today they came to play and they won.
I've seen Chef Billy in the chat, by the way. Shouts out to Chef Billy, one of the GOATs. Riding or dying for the console community. He's another big mainstay in that CGL. And I think I don't know if I actually seen him in chat, but I have at least felt Headrammer's presence as well. Whenever there's console Overwatch to be played, he is definitely not too far off, and there's going to be more console Overwatch to be played on the side of Moon Gorillas, and a lot more Overwatch to be playing tomorrow. But for today, that is going to wrap things up, chat. I want to go ahead and take a quick opportunity to thank Skiesti for hosting this tournament. She is lovely, and I can't wait to see how this tournament all plays out. And next time I see her at LAN, I'm going to give her another very, very big hug, because she deserves it. Absolutely. And, I also want to go ahead and thank the rest of chat. And by the way, chat, we got a quick little call to action for you before we go. You saw that Mercy poll earlier, the skin, talking about what's the best Mercy skins? Go ahead and vote in that. Go ahead and, click the link in the chat and vote for what you think the best Mercy skin is. We're going to have the results of that poll coming out tomorrow as well. And tomorrow you're going to want to be back here at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's when it's all going down. That's when we get to see all of these 2 weekends coming to a conclusion, and potentially the rematch of what we just saw today.
Yeah, absolutely. This could be an amazing grand finals tomorrow in the Divine Division. I believe we'll also see the Valkyrie grand finals as well tomorrow on stream. So there's also looking forward to that. And don't forget, if you have Mercy play of the games you want to submit, you got to submit them at the link that's also in the chat. But I think that's it for us today, CB. What a day of games it was. What a day of upsets it was.
It was, I wouldn't call it upsetting, but it definitely was a day of an upset towards the very end of it. The first match was an upset as well. We thought Rad Rockets were going to take it against Babinki, but shows us for doubting Babinki, shows us for doubting the console players, even going up against a team as scary as Redbirds Esports. And I mean, I love to see it. You always love to see these kinds of upset storylines, and there will definitely be, I shouldn't say definitely, there might be more of that tomorrow.
Possibly.
You never know. There's definitely going to be more Overwatch to play, more Mercy. I know a certain Mafia is going to be tuning in for that one, and I hope to see you guys all there right alongside, and we'll see you next time, chat. Bye-bye.